this meeting of Medicine Hat City Council is called to order at 6:33 p.m. on December 5th, 2022. We will begin with a moment for prayer or reflection. Thank you. I would now like to read the land acknowledgement. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. Are there any counselor announcements this evening? Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair, I just wanted to take a moment to honor the loss of one of our community leaders last week, David Carter, a local lawyer, not David Carter the author, David Carter the lawyer, as he often had to clarify. David passed away surrounded by his family, and he did not want any memorial service, and I'm going to have to agree to disagree, which ironically was the nature of our adversarial but extremely respectful relationship. I love talking to David about his files, about travel, about history, and about Medicine Hat. If any of you read his obituary, you would know he volunteered extensively and brought his deep intellect and quick wit to every board or committee that he sat on, and they were better for it. If you ever met David, you would know he was dedicated to his wife, his daughters, and his grandchildren. And he often spoke to me about their accomplishments and their adventures. I will not forget soon or hopefully ever how he looked when he was winding up into an argument in court or a story about his family. He would fiddle with an elastic band on his hand. His eyes would light up with delight. And he loved to share all the thoughts in his great big brain. So I did not want his passing to go unmarked. He was a mentor and adversary at the same time, which is a very rare combination. And I'm grateful to have spent time with him, and I'm thinking of his family and their immense loss at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had the opportunity to attend an APEGA event last week where 3 city employees were recognized. Randy Buckner, our superintendent of engineering, planning and development services, received her 5-year voluntary service recognition. Adria Coombs, who is our works in our manager of environmental, she received her Fellowship of Engineers Canada for 10 years of volunteer service with an engineering board. And Derek Wingenbach from PDS received his PL engineer designation. So congratulations to all of them. Anything else? Okay, we will move on to adoption of the agenda. We have 2 additions. We have the addition of police chief, and that will fall under 11.3 under new business, but we will deal with it immediately after the adoption of the minutes. And we have appointments, which will fall under new business at 11.4. Are there any objections to those 2 additions and that change in the timing? Seeing none, the agenda is adopted as amended. And we will now move on to the adoption of the minutes from the regular City of Medicine Hat Council meeting from November 21st, 2022. Are there any errors or omissions? Councillor Knodel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark, through the chair. It lists Councillor Hirsch as being present and away, both at the same time.
Okay, so City Clerk, can you make that amendment? Thank you. Any other errors or omissions? Seeing none, we will adopt the minutes as amended. So having moved item 11.3 up in the agenda, Councillor Sharps, would you like to introduce this item?
I would be honored to. So this normally would be coming from the chair of the commission, but he has allocated that to me for today. So we are very pleased to be ratifying a chief of police to this evening. So I'm going to give you everybody a little backstory. We started the recruitment process about 6 months ago, and for those that do recruitment, you know that that's about the right timeline once you set your parameters and do job or opportunity profiles, and you're going out to the community to do some relationship questions. So by the time we started all that, it was a good 6 months, and we had over 29 candidates. It was a very it was an incredible calling that came, and we had some amazing candidates that applied. As we went through the process, there was a hiring committee that started it off with those 29, and as we moved down, we got to the top 8, and then the top 8 became the top 3, and then top 3 were interviewed in these chambers by the entire police commission, and it was a unanimous decision to offer the current interim Chief Murphy the position of the Chief of Police. So, on behalf of the Police Commission, I would like to move that Council approve the appointment of Alan Murphy as Chief of Police for the City of Medicine Hat, effective January 1st, 2023.
Second. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Dumanowski?
Thanks, Worship. No, I was going to say, I mean, having had many years on the police commission, I understand the brevity of hiring a police chief, and certainly the responsibility put on a commission to be the public vision and voice for the broader community, and selecting a candidate who will take that service to the next level. And I trust the process. I trust the two of you that sat on that amongst the other members, and certainly we have to vote, but certainly having the opportunity to put Chief-elect Murphy forward as the candidate of choice is supported by me. And again, a testament to a process that is quite vigorous. And every employee that we hire plays an important role. I would be remiss if I started suggesting there are important, less important, and more important roles within the organization. But certainly, I think the Chief of Police is amongst the most important and highest responsibilities put on people around this table and the community. So I congratulate you on that and look forward to giving an affirmation toward that vote.
Councillor Knodel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark, through the chair. So when we had the opportunity to ask a few questions about the name that came forward, Councillor Van Dyke and Councillor Sharps shared about the value of relationships with the community that were put forward in the interview, and as well as taking things from status quo to next level. We've got some great needs in our community, and making sure that the individual that is in that position is able to meet the needs of the community, and it was clear that he'll be able to do that. So thank you.
All right, seeing no further comments, we will vote on the motion to appoint the chief.
It's not working.
And that's unanimous.
Well, I would like to invite Chief Murphy down to say a few words if he would like.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Council, and the Police Commission. When I waited for the vote, I was getting stressed out a little bit. I was starting to wonder if I should just head out the door. I make this very brief. I am beyond excited to lead this organization and to be your chief. And I am honored to wear this uniform and to lead this organization to the future. So I just want to thank you for that, and I won't let you down. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. And moving on now to item 8, unfinished business. We have budget deliberations, and this item has been deferred a couple of times, but we are happy to welcome Managing Director Pancoast of Strategic Management and Analysis to provide her presentation on strategic management and analysis budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, and members of the public. This evening, I'm also joined by Strategic Management and Analysis Directors, or their designates, through the Teams link, so please also welcome them. First, a bit about our division, as we are lesser known compared to the other divisions. That really is because we are a new division as of Q2 of last year. It was formed from a combination of existing departments, teams, and individuals. Plus, we did add some capacity through the creation of vacant roles where needed. The division has 4 departments: planning and development, which for context represents roughly half of the division by headcount; strategy and analysis, which is the former utility business development and support team; environment, land, and government relations, as well as a business transformation office. With the exception of planning and development and other smaller areas, our division offers internal service support, so that's another reason why we are lesser known. We're largely behind the scenes. Strategic management and analysis targets value by adding further sophistication in how we collectively plan, make decisions, and execute our work across the city organization, all intended to drive a higher level of corporate performance. That approach aligns with key themes that can be found in Council's strategic plan. For instance, chase opportunity and mitigate risk, systems thinking, use of expertise and best practice, solving problems collaboratively, organizational-wide decisions that are transparent, justifiable, and in public interest, and most importantly for our group, begin and end with data. So what does that mean? What is our role? The newest parts of our division are working to accelerate the shift from decentralized and sometimes siloed departmental approaches to one with greater visibility of information for decision makers, so that holistic decision making can occur where appropriate, not always appropriate, but where appropriate. It focuses on 3 key elements. Number 1, strategic planning in a more integrated way. This involves advancing coordinated city strategies and goals, long-term financial forecasts, and measures of success on financial, environmental, and social elements. It looks to take advantage, ultimately, of multidisciplinary skills that we have as a city for a more thoughtful and cohesive approach to our longer-term plans. Number 2, evidence-based decision-making in a more systematic way. This includes introduction of corporate-wide management systems or standard approaches to the way we work. Those common ways of working will then deliver common data and common information sets. That data will support transparency of information, accountability, and informed decision-making, and overall city performance. And number 3, providing process and tools for improving operational efficiency and effectiveness in a way that will stick long-term to help lower cost, increase effectiveness, and/or increase value. All of that with a focus on a customer, whether that be external customers or our internal customers. As a new division, filling vacant roles and defining what we are about has taken some time, as will the build-out of the foundational processes to deliver on this focus. And you will see that focus on building foundational processes reflected in our business plans. I will note that much of our division's accountability is to define the framework for how we can collectively proceed, but the execution and even the secret sauce is typically done across the organization within the individual departments. We're not trying to centralize what everyone does, but provide the guiding framework so that we have a common way of doing things. Of course, in addition to the build-out of this newer part of our vision, we do, of course, have some well-established areas within our team, including planning and development that most people are familiar with, our energy and infrastructure-related land management, reclamation efforts, geospatial information systems, or GIS, automated metering, infrastructure, AMI, and energy marketing, just to name a few. Now, a word on Invest Medicine Hat. While it's not formally part of the Strategic Management and Analysis Division, authority for the day-to-day accountabilities has been delegated here since June. The budget you see in the package is a placeholder, and I do want to stress placeholder because it has not had dedicated leadership since the last of 3 leadership roles was vacated in June, and those 3 leadership roles included 2 dedicated directors as well as a dedicated managing director. So the budget that you see today reflects status quo and sales of remaining inventory that we have on hand with respect to land. The current team has been working really hard to triage and move existing work forward, and I really do appreciate their efforts, particularly given the impact from the vacated leadership positions. Importantly, in this moment of team leadership vacancy, executive leadership is revisiting the Invest Medicine Hat mandate and related resourcing needs with council. For clarity, however, I do want to stress that the city does, of course, remain committed to a strong economic development team and is focused on successful economic growth as clearly evidenced by council's strategic plan. Once the team's mandate is reconfirmed and leadership is identified and established, the new leadership will bring forward a new budget for council consideration anticipated in the first half of 2023. Until then, we felt it was inappropriate to show a more favorable budgetary outlook that was based on a guesstimate before we have a chance to identify and deliver on plans that would then deliver the new budget. Still, with the anticipated renewal of strategies for growth and related land development and sales, we do fully expect that the pending budget amendment will offer upside from what is in the current placeholder. So, Your Worship, that takes me to my allotted time, but if desired, I could take another 3 to 4 minutes to walk through department-based priorities and the link to the budget, or we can simply dive into questions.
Thank you. I think the strategic priorities would be a helpful piece to add.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll walk through quickly department by department. So within planning and development, we have 2 core objectives, one focused on excellent customer care, and the other on continuing the alignment and planning efforts with our still new municipal development plan. The budgeted revenues there do reflect inflationary and other impacts to fees and charges that is part of the package this evening for council's consideration. We do assume that those charge increases are offset by lower volume assumptions given the broader economic environment facing developers today. On the expense side, we do have an addition of 2 headcount in that group. Those were actually approved by the city manager in January of this year, and that was as a result of a delayed review of the planning and development team during the 2021 broader corporate organization revisit. Our city planner role was vacant, so we had opted to delay until we had a chance for her feedback. And this is really the first budget that is able to reflect the approval of those 2 roles. Still, both additions in terms of those 2 roles have the customer in mind. One is a stakeholder relations role, and that is intended to drive focus on the customer, including a customer hotline of sorts, post-activity surveys, clarity of our process communications, and more. And the second is a safety codes coordinator role that is intended to help mitigate risk of service delivery. That team is facing a higher than average number of individuals that are now eligible for retirement or becoming eligible for retirement. So we are concerned about succession planning there. In planning and development, we have 3 project-related major operating expense asks, one related to active transportation plan, which is a cross-functional initiative That is also partially grant-funded and certainly aligns with our MDP and our community wellness approaches. One related to Cimarron Area Structure Plan that aligns with resilience and sustainability and economic evolution, and one specifically related to process review to make sure that we are aligning to meet our customers' needs in the most efficient and effective way possible. With respect to Business Transformation Office, they have 3 core objectives identified in their business plan. One related to creating an asset management and project management system that will enable collection of information for improved holistic decision-making at the corporate level. One related to maturing our operational technology cybersecurity framework. That's to ensure ongoing risk mitigation for our operational assets. And the third related to introduction of a corporate approach to processes. And the focus there is to build out a foundational inventory of our city processes, as well as the delivery of training to help drive efficiencies across the organization. In that department, we have added an expense related to ongoing costs for operational technology, cyber software, and related consulting expertise. And we do also have a major operating ask in the form of major operating expense related to the management systems I just referenced. We do also have a capital ask. This is on behalf of energy and infrastructure, where we are looking to add operational technology, network refresh, and cybersecurity controls. Next is our Environment, Land, and Government Relations Department. They have 3 core objectives included in their business plan. One is the delivery of the environmental framework, that as well as ARO or abandonment reclamation obligation, specifically reclamation program accountabilities from this team, and improving environmental planning and compliance processes. On the land side, we are looking to centralize lease management for a more consistent experience across our customers. And we're also looking to create a brownfield redevelopment strategy to support economic growth. On the government relations side, that is a new area for this team, and our initial focus is on improving controls around how we engage with our regulators, but also looking to build out our advocacy interests together with the Chief of Staff. The ongoing expenses in that department are neutral since we have removed 1 headcount, but that is offset by increased costs related to ongoing management of contaminated sites. And in that department, we have 1 major operating expense ask related to the environmental framework, because we will need to engage consultants for the next phase of that work. And then finally, we have strategy and analysis. They have 2 core objectives, one related to supporting the delivery of an energy transformation strategy with a focus on decarbonization. The second with respect to the broader build out of our strategic decision-making tools, including integrated process for long-term financial planning, strategic planning, business cases, and other evidence-based decision-making. The expenses there remain consistent with what we saw as part of the 2021 org change, but the budget has shifted to reflect a home base of budget of costs that we then charge back out for recovery from the energy and utility side of the businesses. We don't have a major operating expense ask in that team because the work will be led by the team members. Thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, it's open for questions and comments. Councillor Van Dyke Councillor Van Dyke.
Sorry, thank you, through the chair. I just had a question regarding the planning and development services. So there is a capital ask, I believe, in that department in the hopes that it will alleviate some of the issues, I believe, in like permitting and licensing. Is that, I just want to clarify that that is the case.
Yes, through the chair, there is a major operating expense ask related to city processes, and we are looking to do an assessment of best practices as to how it's done elsewhere and to streamline our broader approach across the various services, including permitting and developing, and certainly will look to engage stakeholder feedback in that process as well. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes, and if I can just follow up. So as part of that ask, is there a technology component and a human resources component? And do you anticipate that if there are gaps shown in the analysis, that there will be a request at a later date to fill in? The reason I'm asking is that is a very forward-facing part of the city. We have a lot of people wanting to do business in the community, and we want to make it as easy for them as we can. So I just want to make sure that that division and department specifically is appropriately resourced to be able to do that, just to make things convenient for the city.
Thank you. Through the chair, we completely agree with you. We do have an existing program called City View, and that program we had struggled with relatively urgent rollout during COVID. We since have had a chance to revisit some of the challenges that rollout had led to. We have gone through a process of what we call stabilizing, but we do certainly see opportunities for improvement from there. It is a core interface with our customers, and absolutely we are hearing feedback and looking to layer in feedback. Our typical approach when it comes to revisiting process is we look at the resourcing we have, the skill set and capability of skills that we have. So people first, then process, and then the technology. So we don't want to use technology to fix other things that might be broken. So we have definitely focused on the people side this year with the entire leadership essentially changing out within the last year or so. And we are now looking to revisit on the process side before we look to make any further changes on a more material basis on the technology side. As part of the org change that we have already implemented, we did add a business process analyst specifically to help troubleshoot and drive improvements related to City View.
Councillor Sharps?
Thank you, and through the chair, Managing Director Pankos, I have 3 questions kind of all over the place. So can you help me understand why, when I look at the city org chart, we have 2 land departments? Because I find that incredibly confusing, and I'm sitting at the Horseshoe. So why do we have 2 land departments?
I appreciate that question. It is one that we even get asked internally. Land has been something where we actually, it hasn't been well known, but we've always essentially had 2 land departments. The land department that we've historically had that people will relate to with respect to economic development and broader property management supports how we grow and making sure we have the inventory for that growth in an orderly way. The second lesser known land group has existed for quite some time to support our operations on the energy and utility side of the equation, particularly related to natural gas and petroleum reserves with our properties, particularly our leases in Saskatchewan and other areas beyond our municipal jurisdiction. So we have carried expertise in those 2 areas for quite some time. They now work very, very closely together to make sure that they are taking best practices from each other. As part of the org change last year, we liken it to Invest Medicine Hat has taken the front office, or really the relationship side for the economic development related growth, and the supporting sister office is the back office, where they're taking all the paperwork and making sure that all the process is in good shape, whether it's helping find lay down areas for somebody who's looking to do some economic development work in the area, whether it's supporting our lease management with the variety of both agricultural and other lessees. So we are looking to revisit the scope between those groups to make sure that they are efficient and meeting the skills that each of them have.
Thank you. And again, through the chair, my second one, and there's only 3, so unless there's any follow-up, but scorecards. I know at the beginning you kind of you mentioned, Managing Director Pankos, that the whole kind of point of the department was to get some efficiencies and best practices. So I have a question. So when we do that, do we, let's say I was the client and I walked, or the customer and I walked up and we install a new process, do we do any verification with me after to find out if, in fact, number 1, I am happy, number 2, that didn't drive me to drink, that it was really efficient, and it was the best practice for not just you, but for me as well? Like, do we do that?
Thank you. Through the chair, the intent of where we're looking to move toward is that that is a expected practice as any project implemented where we have a chance to do a lessons learned feedback opportunity, making sure that there is a look back if with the internal customer or external customer. For instance, even with the position that's approved but yet to be funded in the stakeholder relations for planning and development, that is one of the objectives we're looking to do, is to have that follow-up with our external developers to make sure that if there is feedback, we're capturing that on a timely basis for more immediate continuous improvement. And certainly in our asset management, project management system build-out, we're looking to include as part of our broader project management best practice that particularly for the more complex or larger projects that we have a chance for a lessons learned opportunity, again, to drive that continuous improvement.
Thank you. My last question, and I'm sure I saw it on this budget, and I'm going to tell you I can't find it on my 476 pages. On the Invest Medicine Hat budget, I am sure I saw $500,000 towards a washroom. Is that correct? And so I'll tell you what my question is. I'm pretty sure that is correct. So I'm not going to put you on the spot if that's correct or not. I'm struggling in our economic times, not for a bathroom. I agree we need a bathroom. Is there not a different solution than $500,000 on a bathroom? I am not lying, struggling with that proponent of it quite a bit.
Through the chair, we do not have any new capital asks from the Invest Medicine Hat side, but I believe what you're referring to is a proposed washroom related to the broader downtown economic activity, and I believe it is Managing Director Mastel who has that within his budget if he'd like to support.
Through your worship, yes, it's in the Parks and Recreation tangible capital asset request for a washroom in the downtown. There's certainly a lot of public use in the downtown area that is struggling to find appropriate washroom facilities. We see activity in our institutional facilities, so the library, City Hall. We see the transit parkade often used, and we accommodated some use through the summer months with portable washrooms in Town Square. It is an area that is difficult to design, an appropriate washroom for public use that does not experience challenges that limits the ability for the public to access it. So we are going to look to a number of municipalities and try to find best practices to bring here. We've observed a number of really interesting, innovative ways that different communities are trying to design washrooms for their public spaces, and that's what makes it quite expensive. So more work to do in terms of design, but the intention is to place it into the downtown area, not necessarily certain whether it would be in the town square itself or look to a park space or common area somewhere in the downtown area for public use more broadly than just town square, but certainly a number of users that have been seeking washroom facilities for a number of years, and increased activity in the downtown just increases that demand.
Go ahead, yep.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up, because I do recall, and I apologize, I didn't write this down, but I saw some notes saying that we feel like we would be able to better use the downtown town square facility if there was, we would have proven rentals if there was a bathroom there. So, like, I'm not sure how we got that idea for sure. But my second question is, if we're still doing the research on what other municipalities are doing, how do we know it's 500?
Through the chair, it's an estimate based on the research that's been gathered to date. Further design needs to be completed. The budget appropriation requested was based on what information we could gather at the time the budget submission was made.
Do you have a follow-up? Councillor Knodel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark. This question is likely for Managing Director Pancoast in regards to the active transportation plan. Are you the right person? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So my question stems from hearing from several community members this past weekend discussing the desire for a more connected, a more accessible way to cycle across the city. And I just wanted to know if you could take me through what steps are required in order to get us to the point where we're reducing speed limits in the city, if that's what we decide to do, or building bollards out on the outside of cycle lanes, or increasing the height of crosswalks. So we start with the active transportation plan, and then what is the sequential path?
Through the chair, if I may invite Amanda Brenda on screen to help with the specifics of that answer, I would appreciate it.
Yes, through the chair, thank you very much for this question. This would be the first step in that process. The intent is to look at where there are gaps in our current active transportation network and look to what would be needed to fill those in. The intent would also be that this could be used as a further justification for grant applications in the future in order to help us to be more successful in obtaining that money in order to do some capital projects in the future.
Follow-up question. So I'm curious about how this plan translates all the way to funding. For example, we have the active transportation plan, and then we would move into, I'm just looking for language here, we'd move into more tangible investments from there. Does the active transportation plan translate into things like a Vision Zero model? Would that translate into a traffic safety study? How does the traffic safety study connect back? Because I think there's several items in the budget that are related to what our cyclists in the community would say, oh yeah, this is going to help us eventually, but is there a network of information, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then yes, we have a check mark and we're starting to build bike lanes?
Through the chair, both are important. I think the traffic safety plan is more related to really automobile safety, where it's dealing with cycling and pedestrians and such is more where those two intersect. So it's definitely an important part of ensuring that throughout the community. The active transportation plan is more dealing with specifically with active modes of transportation and ensuring that that network is contiguous and can actually be used by people as a viable method of transportation.
Can I give Managing Director Mastel an opportunity to respond? Because I know that they have things in their budget in relation to active transportation as well.
Your worship, you might have caught me at a dull moment, so I'm trying to think of what we have specifically that relates to active transportation. I don't know if you're referencing something in particular. I know the group works in coordination with respect to the trail system that we have throughout the city. There is, I think, some recommendations that came from Bike Medicine Hat regarding the efficiency of riding a trail system between point A and point B versus being able to use roadway systems, which are usually a more direct link. So I know that conversation is ongoing between how we design our road spaces and our trail systems to be compatible with one another. Some have more of a recreational bias towards their design than purely just a transportation network, but we are working very closely in tandem with the city operations group and the planning and development group as we look at long-term plans and as it relates to the trail system. So if that's what you were referencing, hopefully I've addressed it. If there's more specific area that you want to dive into, please direct me to that area.
Nope, that was accurate. And then Director Bohan also has items in city assets, multimodal transportation connectivity, which is not funded until 2025. I think we did talk a little bit about a bit of confusion regarding how these plans are intended to operate together, and as well as satisfy the need for incremental improvement where there's low-hanging fruit. So perhaps, Director Bohan, you could come online and just provide the insight from your division's or your department's perspective.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, you're correct. Actually, the active transportation plan helps us understand what it is the city ought to build. And that plan will help direct us in terms of what to actually physically build. We go through the process in our transportation safety plan. We'll be going through an extensive stakeholder engagement with the community, with a broad number of stakeholders, including some of the cycling stakeholder groups, as well as pedestrian, skateboard, and other modes of transportation. So we're going to take a look at all of those as part of our transportation safety model. That'll include the sidewalks and the multi in many parts of the city. That's going to form part of the scope of our work. We'll also be working directly in direct tandem with the group doing the active transportation, the active transportation work. And so we'll be a stakeholder in that study as well. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Knodel?
Thank you so much. I appreciate your clarifying questions. That helped a lot. So just to confirm that I've heard this correctly, based on what staff has said and what Mayor Clark has asked. So it would go active transportation plan, and then transportation safety plan, and then multimodal investments in 2025. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
All right. I have a couple of questions as well. So on the planning process review, and that's the item that is, I don't know if it's an MOE or, it's an MOE, Planning and Development Service Process Review. I note that that is allocated to 2024. That seems like something that we could get a payback on earlier if we did it earlier. Can you provide some insight into why that's happening in 2024 instead of 2023?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I may ask City Planner Brenda to also provide some thoughts. I believe it really came down to priority of workload with a number of items underway for 2023 within the team, but also we are in the final stretches of stabilizing the City View process. We are looking at some early shifts in that and wanted to make sure that the broader work of that was stable before we started comparing apples to apples with other jurisdictions. But if I may turn it over to Director Brenda.
Thank you. Managing Director Pancoast is correct. The reason for the delay is because we are still in the last stages of the stabilization project for City View. And part of that involves really straightening out exactly what our processes are. In working with a project manager through the Business Transformation Office, it was determined that we needed to complete that work before we should start the process review, so that we were dealing with what the processes actually were rather than kind of having them in flux while we're trying to assess them.
Okay. Can I just ask also that there's no talking in the gallery? It can be disruptive. So the second question would be the difference between strategy and analysis and BTO specifically.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Strategy analysis really focuses on understanding trends, benchmarking, data, all of the considerations to really understand how we are performing at our operational level, at our business level, really looking at the longer-term strategic direction and supporting a strategic planning process for the long term, as well as a longer-term financial outlook, doing scenario analysis to help understand and quantify some of those risks and opportunity, really being the business partner for evidence-based decision-making through business cases with the various departments. Business Transformation Office really is trying to drive that coordinated way of doing our work, so it's much less about the direct data and the direct financial and other related analysis. It's more about helping create those frames where we can have common ways and systems of performing the work so that we are able to collect common data sets that we would then turn over to strategy analysis and the businesses and departments to support continuous improvement. Really, BTO, or Business Transformation Office, is looking at how we are documenting the blueprint for how we perform our processes and using that as an opportunity for change and helping coach and drive change management in appropriate project managed way to drive that change. So one is more about the analysis and one is more about the systems to deliver a common way of doing things.
Okay, so I understand why our utility cybersecurity infrastructure has to be separate from our municipal cybersecurity infrastructure, and that even between our different utilities, the cybersecurity infrastructure has to be different. I'm wondering, though, if there has been any analysis of whether combining the human capital in those two departments, whether that could provide some efficiencies so that the infrastructure stays separate as it has to, but the resources we're putting in terms of individuals could be streamlined or made more efficient. And I'm not talking necessarily about, laying off people or anything, but just that they're all kind of working, sharing knowledge, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And it's little understood that there is a difference between our information technology side that resides with corporate services and the operational technology side that's focused on the assets. And it is the operational technology side that our division supports. We certainly are following the same framework in terms of how we measure maturity of our processes, both the IT, information technology, as well as the OT, operational technology side, are following that same approach. We use NIST. I'd have to remember what the specific acronym is used for. But we certainly as well do make a concerted effort for regular collaboration, regular sharing for best practice perspective. We are aligned on a couple of steering committees, so to speak, to make sure that those reviews are occurring as needed. I would say that the opportunities that are there are already being addressed through that regular collaboration, but I'd certainly look to Managing Director Egert to suggest otherwise or to confirm.
I got a head shake. Same question with respect to the land department in Invest Medicine Hat and the environment, land, and governance relations aspect of our land department. I note that in the environment, land, and government relations, it's in some ways directed at a lease portfolio management, rentals, that kind of thing. So it would seem to me that it's one commercial real estate portfolio, and just wondering if there have been some efficiencies explored or have have the merging of those two departments been explored?
Thank you for that question, Mayor Clark. Certainly, there have been questions with the presence of two separate land groups, whether there are some efficiencies that could be gained. I suspect with the revisit of the mandate for Invest Medicine Hat, that may be one of the questions that we can explore further. However, in the meantime, we have been very intentional about making sure that we are working together and collectively in ensuring clarity of roles and responsibilities throughout the land process across the different avenues for the city so that we're not duplicating and nothing is missed. And we are making sure that we are capturing the best information from the groups. Similar to the OT and IT scenario, we have these two groups working really closely together today.
All right, seeing no further questions, that we will receive that for information. I don't think we need a motion, so we're receiving it for information. And we will continue our budget deliberations at item 9. So we'll, at this time, move on to item 8.2, relief options for low-income residents. And the sponsor is Corporate Services. Managing Director Eager, did you have any opening comments?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. This item is in response to City Council direction from November the 7th to prepare a utility relief option for the most disadvantaged. We have responded with this briefing note that was presented at the last council meeting. We're titling it Relief Options for Low-Income Residents. The recommendations do include a program that is specifically for 2023 and then will be evaluated on an annual basis. The program will leverage the fair entry program and policy that is within public services. So we'll be using the same standard and same eligibility and criteria that's defined in the fair entry program. The fair entry program is based on a LICO, a low-income cutoff score that's determined by Statistics Canada. The fair entry rebate that is being proposed is, again, for calendar year 2023. It would be $50 per month for those eligible for the months of January, February, March, and July, August, and September. It will be administered as a separate credit line item on the utility statement, and that is one of the eligibility criteria is that the applicant holds a utility account.
Councillor Sharps?
Yeah, sorry. Just a quick question to Managing Director Eggert. I'm under the impression the province is doing something as well. Is there any value in waiting to see what they do, or working with them or in conjunction with them so we're not duplicating efforts? I don't know, I have it in my head that they were doing something about the utility increases over the next few months.
Thank you for the question through the chair. The province of Alberta has announced on several occasions utility support within the province. The first item that was announced was a electric relief package for $200. That electric relief package is essentially an extension of what's currently being offered, but the amounts are different. For January and February, the monthly rebate will be $75 a month, and for March and April, that'll be $25 a month. So this provincial program is separate and distinct, and in addition to what's being proposed here for the relief options from the City of Medicine Hat. In addition, the province of Alberta has announced other benefits related to that they'll be administering separately through the province. $600 for each senior and each child under 18 for 6 months for household with family incomes less than $180,000. The provincial fuel tax will be suspended in Alberta for at least 6 months. And then also, along with income tax indexing The tax indexing retroactive will go back to 2022, and that'll occur with AISH, disabilities, senior benefits, and Alberta Child and Family Benefit Programs.
So prior to any further questions or discussions, could we get a motion to get this item on the table?
Worship, I move that council approve the creation of a 2023 relief program to assist low-income residents in the community in alignment with the existing City of Medicine Hat Fair Entry Program as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Counselor Sharps, did you have a follow-up?
I did, really quick. Managing Director, so can people be eligible for both programs? And does being eligible in one program exempt you from being eligible in another? Like if we give them the city, does that exempt them from anything with the province? I just want to make sure that we don't do anything to cause them harm from getting money from the province. And it looks like the province is giving more money. So I just want to make sure that we've covered all of that.
So the eligibility criteria are different between the province and between the city. It's very possible and likely that someone who qualifies in Medicine Hat would also receive the benefits from Alberta.
Just clarifying, sorry, if you could just, sorry to be so blunt, answer my question though. Getting one won't mitigate you getting the other, right? Or won't stop you from getting the other. So we have nothing set up in our parameters other than being eligible for LICO, that if they receive that funding, they won't get ours.
That's my understanding.
Councillor McGrogan?
Thank you. Through the chair, just a quick question, and I guess for some clarity, the funding request, it looks like an estimate, obviously, of 1.8 million. We were using the number of 6,000 potential, and I get it, it's not a science, it's kind of an art. But if we look at our experience from last year, because we're duplicating the program, is that projection a reasonable is probably not the right word. Is it more of a possibility or a probability that it would be that much? I mean, I don't know how many applicants we had last year and who qualified, and even if we said that there might be twice as many this year, I'm wondering where that could project out to reasonably. And I understand why you've picked the number of 6,000, I get it, but have you got a guesstimate of worst case scenario or best case, however you want to look at it?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, Councilor McGrogan, the estimate of 6,000 is what we believe for those residents that would qualify under the LICO criteria. As you may imagine, not everyone will end up applying. And for those, we had estimated 50 to 66%, so half to two-thirds we hope will be applying and be receiving these benefits. As a result, we had estimated $1.8 million as I'll say a reasonable amount that we believe will be the cost of this program.
Councillor Dumanowski?
Your Worship, my question actually dovetails on Councillor McGrogan's, and the number of those we believe are eligible. When I look at some of the background information, unless I took it out of the wrong area, there are currently 100 households enrolled in the City Medicine Hat Fair Entry Program, but it's estimated 6,000 may qualify. Is that correct? So my thought would be then, kind of, if I understood Councillor McGrogan's same idea, is how did we extrapolate that? Is that a Stats Canada, the LICO, is that something we get from Stats Canada that we can predetermine? And then, even if it is or isn't, and it's our best estimate, with only 100 current households, I don't know what the multiplier would be. We'd have to get Councillor Hirsch to do that. But I'm struggling to see how it seems pretty optimistic. My thought is, if we only have 100 people who, and that's not in this area right now, but in other fair entry amenities meet that criteria, I fear, I guess, that many or most will not be able to capitalize or will not have the opportunity to capitalize on this. And even though we are earmarking a significant amount for the right reasons, the draw take, if you want to call it, will not be significant and won't hit the group that it's intended to hit. So I need to understand a little bit better, please.
All right, and before I ask Denise Schmaltz to maybe provide some comments on the 6,000, I can comment that the existing fair entry program does relate to recreational facilities, and that's where the 100 came from. So that's a real number. That's the number that we've seen in the past that have applied and made use of the recreational facilities. This particular estimate for the 6,000, we believe will have more uptake because it does relate to credits on utility bills that everyone will be utilizing. We know that it will take some time to get the administration in place to deliver this program in the first quarter of 2023. But that's maybe a little bit of the background, but I don't know, Denise, if you have any additional information as to sort of the estimate of 6,000.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, the 6,000 is an estimated amount. We know through talking through our AISH, the local AISH department, that we have 3,000 AISH customers residing in our community. So 3,000 is quite a high number, and that doesn't include all of the other low-income families, seniors that are also in the community. With the fair entry program, the numbers this year are low. In the past, they have been higher pre-COVID numbers, keeping in consideration that low-income families may not be applying through the fair entry program because recreation is a luxury item. So we're hoping to be able to gauge the people that qualify in our community to sign up through the fair entry so that we can get them registered, find out other supports, get a good gauge on what the demographics in the community are, to be able to facilitate that through the utility. Utility program gives the avenue and the venue to give them that $50, keeping in mind that not all low income will have utilities in their name or maybe not in shared housing. So 6,000 is an estimate.
Just if I could supplementary, Your Worship. Thank you for that explanation. And I'm not picking on staff when I say this, but I did read in here that the LICO was kind of the desired kind of litmus test for application due to, and maybe this is the way I read it, but it would create less administrative burden. So were there other, and I see there were a multitude of other thoughts put forward that were not selected as the desired options, and I'm just wondering for the reasons, some of the reasons actually that have already been discussed in your answers, not that they're not accurate, but I'll go back and I'll cycle back one more time. I worry about the intended targeted group not being able to capitalize on this, and if I can juxtapose against that the community warmth, which I know had a different criteria, but I know it had, it was a different intended use, but it probably had a pretty significant uptake. Those were the two words I was looking for earlier. And I'm wondering if there's any opportunity or would be any opportunity to put those together in some way. Now, that presupposes that anyone who that is eligible for community warmth has a utility account, so I get it. But I'm just wondering if there was an avenue for those who might otherwise be impacted by the burden of higher utilities. And I don't know if and I'm not a landlord, but if any of that is passed on, or I know some have embedded fees into their rents or otherwise, and in some cases maybe have seen an increase to that. So just trying to find a way to hit a bigger target audience with this is my intended goal.
Through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, the challenge with community warmth is that community warmth will be utilized first before any other provincial supports. So it basically negates any provincial supports that are coming through income support. Income support requires that community funding be used first before they kick in to help. So in the past, we would lose that funding when it's going to community warmth. Right now with our community warmth program, we have the ability to help a limited amount to customers. That information is communicated with Alberta Works, and they recognize that, and we work in conjunction with Alberta Works and Community Warmth.
Councillor Knodel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark. So based on the known struggles of low-income people in Medicine Hat, I propose we make an amendment to the motion related to Section A, Part 2, to offer eligible residents $100 rather than $50 rebate in January, February, March, August, and September.
And July?
Yes, and July.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the table. Is there a seconder?
Sorry, there's.
So, sorry, there's an amendment. There's a proposed amendment. Is there a seconder to the motion just made by Councillor Knodel to amend the original motion?
Can I clarify what I'm asking for? Just for those that missed? Or does everyone?
For the sake of getting the debate on the table, I'm going to second that.
Thank you. So are you, yeah, can you take your, and you have a comment on the amendment?
Yeah, my question is to either one on the table, so.
Okay, so this is specifically whether we're going to increase the amount to $100. So that all it would be, that the amendment would just be in the recommendation, A2, to replace $50 with $100.
Sorry, yeah, I might be totally out to lunch here. I feel like I don't have enough questions answered on the first motion on the table to even do second motion on the table. So if we were to vote on it, it's a no, so I'm not sure if I want to waste anyone's time. I would really like to get, and maybe that side of the table is smarter, well, they are smarter, but if they could just help me out, I'm lost completely and utterly, not except for you.
Councillor Knodel, would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure. So the reason I wanted to put this on the floor is because I think about what it's like getting a $50 reimbursement when unfortunately that doesn't always cover the cost of groceries for the month. There's a lot of, I'm thinking about what does $50 mean to a low-income family versus $100 when it's a time of financial strain and crisis. I understand there is relief coming from the provincial government, but these are also people that may have to opt to go to the root cellar to make sure they can pay their bills. There's a lot of integrity in a family that comes from being able to make your own meals. To me, if we have the opportunity, especially knowing where we've come from last year with the profits in our energy sector, it's a no-brainer to me that we offer a bit more of a robust amount of money to the people that need it.
Councillor Sharps?
Yeah, okay. So I guess this goes back to my first question, but when I look at people that are in need in our community, I'm pretty sure most of them aren't mortgage holders, so they probably don't have utility accounts in their names. So if you look at a lot of the apartments in town, condos might be an exception, but utilities are included. So if you look at most of the bigger rental properties, utilities are included because of the fact that they don't usually get paid if they're not included. So I guess if we're trying to hit to our most hardest hit, maybe we need to come up with some sort of a program for landlords specific for rent, hang on, just calm down. Landlords specific to utility, but like make it very public, so say Avenue Living, they, on this street, they got $100 rebate per apartment, so you won't see a rent increase. I don't know what it is, I'm an HR person, not a freaking business analyst, but what my point is this, it's not, the hardest hit aren't in homes paying mortgages. So I think we have to figure out a different way to do that. And just to Councillor Knodl's point, I think we are, and I mean this with utmost respect, there's lots of people using the root cellar right now. It isn't just low income. There's lots of people that have lost their jobs. There's lots of people that are struggling. So I think this horseshoe is responsible for our entire community, not just a portion of it. So I think that giving them more money is you're only giving a certain portion more money, and we're not solving a bigger issue of how are we going to deal with this and what are we going to do. And I know Denise is incredibly, experienced with this and always has some good solutions. So I just think there can be more conversation around this on what we can do for our community instead of just keep throwing money at a certain group of people. And that LICO's gone up for 2023. So, right? So it gets reassessed every year. So every time they reassess, that money goes up. So it changes everything. So just more conversation. I mean, I would have to go back to the first motion on the table. I would be okay with that. Second motion, I'm not okay with, just because I don't think we're actually solving the issue.
Denise, would you be able to tell us when we're looking at apartments, because I know this was dealt with as well with certain other relief options, a condo where there's 1 meter versus like a landlord situation where there's multiple meters, but the landlord has pays the utilities, it's in their name.
Yes, through the chair. Your worship, we have a great mix of different varieties. So we do have where the owners are signed on for utilities and they include utilities with their rent, but we also have a good mix of customers where that isn't the case. We're also noticing a trend right now with utility rates increasing. Landlords are shifting away from including utilities with the rent because they're having a harder time just collecting their rent, where the utilities becomes the city's problem for collection. When we looked at the AISH customers that we do have utility accounts for, the average AISH customer bill is around $280 a month for utilities. During the peak periods from January to March and also in the summer, their bills typically go up to $320 to $330. So that's where the $50 increase for those higher consumption months came from.
Thank you, and I apologize. I should have called you Manager Schmaltz instead of by your first name. I apologize. Councillor Dumanowski.
Your worship, I had one intended question, but I'm going to work backward if I could quickly. So Manager Schmaltz, so your point about decoupling is a word we're using a lot, but where the utilities being kind of removed from rent for the reasons you indicated, what about finding a means, or the people who have partial, because I've heard of that, where people have partial utilities covered in their rent, and maybe they pay, water might be, for example, but they pay for their own electricity and that, so that doesn't change their eligibility, is that correct?
Through the chair, no, it doesn't change their eligibility. So with Alberta Housing, often they pay the gas and the water portion, where the tenant then pays the electrical portion, the same within apartment buildings as well. So it would not change their eligibility.
Okay, working my way around, Councillor Sharps, I'm going to three-peat myself, and I dovetail what you said. I would like to see a greater pool of people or candidacy for this. My worry about not supporting anything today would be that we are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I'd rather see us try to do something for some limited group than nothing at all. And to Councillor Knodl's point and my seconding, I actually support that. My thought would be, and I don't know if it's a friendly amendment to your amendment, but that the cap still be maintained. So 1.8, I think it was. I fear, quite frankly, that the uptake will be insignificant and we won't even get remotely close to that. So I'm extraordinarily comfortable making it $100 as long as we cap it, because I know I won't make a wager, but I would imagine we won't even get close to that, hitting that ceiling. But just in case we create a ceiling, but I like the idea of increasing it for those who will meet clear-cut eligibility requirements.
A clarifying question on your proposed friendly amendment. Do you agree that it's a friendly amendment? So would that be per month? How would you propose that the cap be applied?
I know the 1.8 is an estimated amount, and I don't know if it was a cap, so my calling it a cap, semantics or otherwise, it's just to ensure that we're not going over what staff believe would be the potential for 6,000 customers at $50 each month for a total of 1.8. I don't believe the eligibility will be there, and so I would support the 100 per month, same months, but that we monitor or cap it at 1.8, just so that we're not running ourselves in a potential scenario of doubling that amount. If that were to prove out to be the case, that we actually had 100 LICO people move to 6,000 overnight.
Okay, so now the motion on the table is to amend the recommendation in the briefing note, item A2, by substituting, maybe could you bring this up? You can't get it on the screen? No. Oh, I thought you could. By substituting, replacing $50 with $100, and subject to a cap, a total amount of 1.8 million. Councillor Knotel?
Could we change the language to uptake to a capacity of 1.8 million? The word, does uptake of the program make sense?
I don't think so, because it is about, the uptake will impact whether or not we reach the total of 1.8, yeah. So that's the motion on the table. Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you, and I'm going to speak to both the general briefing note and the amendment. So I wanted to thank the staff for preparing this. When I had first brought this forward, this meets the criteria of everything that I had been thinking, and I really appreciate the work that went into it, including the ideas put forward that were not recommended. And I appreciate very much the concern for the community, and agree with Councillor Dumanowski about getting this through, because my concern, and part of the reason why we had asked for this in a timely manner, is that there would be distress in the community knowing the New Year's rates and the coming cold months, and that it would cause significant distress to community members. And so I wanted to mitigate that as much as possible. So I agree that putting something through today would be very helpful. I do appreciate that the province is also has also declared a program as well, but I agree that with the costs and with the demographic that we're looking at, that there is additional help needed.
Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the chair. I also express my appreciation for the 15 other options that were considered. That's not a small amount of things to mull over, and they were really concisely explained why they would not work, the various reasons. I also appreciate what I've just heard from Ms. Schmaltz, that $50 is based on actual bills that have been reviewed, and so that number comes from somewhere, and you've explained about AISH recipients and how that would cover them for those higher consumption months. So thank you very much for answering that question. That helped me a lot. My concern is that I don't think we're catching enough people in this safety net, because we're missing out, as Councillor Sharps has indicated, people who live in condos and their condo fees include their utilities, or people who live in rentals and the rental fees include their utilities. And so we have one group of people who may benefit from this, but then others who may fit the LICO criteria, but because of the way they're billed, would not be able to access it. So that's where my concern is, and I don't know the solution to that problem, but I would love to see the solution to that problem. I'm not going to agree with Councillor Knodel about the $100. I'm going to support the $50, but I still would like to see some more work on those in condos and rental situations that are not caught in this safety net, and I think they need the safety net. Thank you.
Councillor McGrogan?
Thank you, and through the chair, again, thanks to staff for their hard work on this. I echo the comments. It's a lot of work and thought has been put into this. I'm going to trust the staff that the $50 is the number. I'm kind of confused about what we're debating about right now, but I would support $50. I don't think as a group of, well, I'm going to speak for myself, I don't feel qualified to say 100 is going to make things twice as good. I think we're looking at a bad situation all around with our economy, so there's no doubt about that. I'm happy we're doing something, but if I did support 100, I want to hear back from staff about what that actually would look like, and if there's anything we're not seeing that would create other imbalances. So I would support 50 right now, if that's what we're debating. I would not support 100 unless staff came back and said, you know what, we can make that work under these arrangements, and we had some comfort around that. So there are my points, and thank you.
Councillor Hirsch?
Thanks, Your Worship. You know, again, I think it's the intent of council, obviously, to get this through somehow, some way, and I think staff have listened to the commentary of all of us that we want to get it out to the right people during the right time. But I actually want to just take a pause too. I'm not going to be in favor of the $100 as well, only because I look back and reiterate that this is a utility relief option from which the indication was it was roughly $50 as we move forward. So I think I'm willing to accept that. Anything else, I think, quite frankly, you would hear perhaps an objection within the community. We do have the provincial government doing a rebate program as well. So quite frankly, I think there's an acknowledgement that we're here doing the right thing, and I'm comfortable with it. Sometimes, you know, as we go, because we actually have a motion on the table, now we've got an amending motion. I'm not a big fan of policy on the fly, so if we can't get consensus on this, we almost have to give it back to staff. We should deal with the amending motion as well, just if that's going to be approved, and then let's deal with the motion that's on the floor, but I won't be supporting the $100. Thanks.
Councillor Hyder?
Thanks, Mayor Clark, through the chair. I have to echo Councillor Hirsch and McGrogan's conversations about I can support the $50. I just have to think about the motion that was brought forward about Councillor Knodel, where we have a duty to the citizens of Medicine Hat, and that means everyone. Where does the other $50 come from? And that concerns me. And I can support people, I have empathy for people, but $50 to me is quite reasonable to come from our organization. So thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Councillor Sharps.
Sorry, more a question of process. So we're on an amended motion. If that gets, I apologize, but if that gets defeated, can we go back to the original motion? Thank you.
All right, so the motion on the table is an amending motion to replace in the recommendation item A2 with create a fair entry rebate for the calendar year 2023 of $100 for the months of January, February, March, July, August, and September that is administered as a separate credit line item on the utility statement for qualifying applicants, subject to the approved funding for the program not exceeding $1.8 million. All right, So we will vote on the amending motion only. So that is defeated. So now we're back to the original motion for the original recommendation. And Councillor Sharps and Councillor Van Dyke had their names on the speakers list prior to the amending motion. Councillor Sharps, you covered yours, and Councillor Van Dyke, same? Okay. I am just wanting to query with Managing Director Egert or Manager Schmaltz. There's been some questions about how to, what the likelihood, or could we get a situation where a single metered building, whether it's a duplex or a, condominium, a large condominium, or people who are in a rental situation. Have you looked into those things, and what did you discover in terms of the feasibility of coming up with a solution that incorporated some of those other people?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, through the chair. Yes, very, very difficult scenarios, that is, in terms of when we have low-income people that have utilities in condos or in other rental properties that aren't in their name. No different what we've experienced during the COVID relief that Council administered last year in regards to the $136 to accounts, that the condo association and condo accounts didn't get that at first glance. And then they did for the amount of units in their condo buildings. However, we can't guarantee, or we cannot force them to give that directly back to their tenants. So we have no leeway other than to encourage them to pass on that savings, but there's no avenue for us to actually enforce that.
So there wouldn't be a contractual arrangement that could be entered into? Is that administratively not ideal?
Through the chair, I'm not sure how binding that would be to deal with every landlord in the city as well as condo associations. And between fairness, if one disagrees and others agree, I'm not sure how to administer that at this point.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no further questions or comments, we'll vote on the, thank you very much, Manager Schmaltz. We'll vote on the original motion. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on now to item 8.3, Committee Commission Business Arising. 8.3.1 is the Council Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of November 16th, 2022.
I move that Council adopt the minutes of Council Committee of the Whole meeting held on November 16th, 2022 as presented for the corporate record.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we will vote. And that's unanimous. Moving on to 8.3.2, Council Employee Committee minutes of November 9th, 2022.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the Council Employee Committee meeting held on November 9th, 2022, as presented for the corporate record.
Second.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we will vote. That's unanimous. 8.3.3, Energy and Infrastructure Committee minutes, November 3rd, 2022.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the Energy and Infrastructure Committee meeting held on November 3rd, 2022, as presented for the corporate record.
I'll second.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we will vote. That's unanimous. 8.3.4, Public Services Committee minutes dated November 14th, 2022.
Mayor Clark, I move that the council adopt the minutes of the Public Services Committee meeting held on November 14th, 2022, as presented for the corporate record.
And I second that.
Errors or omissions? Seeing none, we'll vote. And that's unanimous. 8.4.1 is reports for reception, Police Commission minutes, October 27, 2022. And that is simply for information. Moving on to item 9, budget deliberations, business arising. We have item 9.1, closing remarks by Managing Director Egert, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And just before I review my closing comments, I just would like to give City Manager Feltham a chance to share some of his comments.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Let me briefly return to some themes I discussed when the proposed budgets for 2023 and 2024 were first introduced. Through the budgetary process, we balanced the needs, priorities, and aspirations of the city against revenue sources and financial sustainability. The proposed budget reflects reinvestments in operations and in the capital of the city. It reflects a desire by our community to maintain our current high levels of service. Our budgetary process is extensive. The process was informed by each department in the city. Departmental business plans were developed which set out operational and capital needs in alignment with Council's strategic plan. We further examined and made recommendations on municipal tax revenues and utility rates and fees. I further discussed the notion of financial sustainability. The conclusion was that we are financially sustainable. While we are sustainable, we must be prudent and vigilant. It's important that we continue to focus on our costs, both operating and capital, and that we continue to focus on revenue generation. This includes both municipal taxes and utility rates. I also briefly discussed the importance of municipal taxes in our sustainability. Municipal taxes are the primary means to pay for ongoing municipal operations. They are central to sustainability. Where these rates are not raised to reflect increased costs, that is municipal inflation, the municipality may be at risk. This is particularly an issue if a lower rate is paid for through a non-sustainable revenue source. I do, though, want to close my comments by once again thanking all of those who were involved in the budgetary process. This includes many people from across the organization. Your efforts are truly greatly appreciated. So if I could turn things back over to Managing Director Egert.
Thank you, City Manager. And through the chair, so thank you again for the opportunity to provide some concluding comments to the budget for 2023 and 2024. Since we presented the budget on November the 7th, Council has had the opportunity to reflect, to deliberate, and to make inquiries. And the responses to these inquiries have been posted on the city website. This budget is all about balance, the balance between achieving the needs of our community defined through the priorities and aspirations of City Council, and between the level of revenue and related fiscal sustainability both now and into the future. The budget includes an annual base property tax increase of 4%, and in addition to that would be any new construction that occurs during 2023 and 2024. It's not only to address municipal inflation, but also to meet regulatory compliance requirements, support and improve organizational health and culture, and to respond to Council's strategic plan. As a result of the existing Treasury policies in connection with distributable cash and dividends, investments, and debt management, our balance sheet is strong and growing, which allows us to meet future challenges and fund our future capital requirements, obligations, and strategic opportunities. Further, prudent corporate decisions have moved us forward towards a bright future. We've largely eliminated our losses from the production of oil and gas by reducing our well count from 4,500 down to 800 since 2018, and our expected investment income has increased markedly due to greater amounts under investment, and that's from profits from our commodity business, and a change in the investment policy to enhance investment returns. So I want to talk a little bit about strategic investments and where we are investing our funds. This budget includes an intentional and strategic investment in our assets. The assets include two subcategories. Number one, investment in our tangible capital assets. That's new or rehabilitation of our existing approximately $3 billion of buildings, structures, utility infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, trails, our fleet. We prioritized approximately $197 million over 2 years in order to increase our efficiency and maximize value. This accounts for 143 projects, mainly capital of 119 and major operating expenses of 24. Funding of these assets included maintaining a responsible and manageable debt limit in accordance with our city policies of 59%. That's an average interest rate of 3.57%. The second category of our assets is an investment in human capital. That's our people resources. Restoring operating staff levels to a sustainable level after a 2021 corporate reorganization, and it was always the acknowledgement at the time that we need to reinvest at some point into some key priority areas. It also reflects a desire to preserve the current level of city services to the community that residents currently enjoy and that they are expecting. And thirdly, this is a significant response to advance council priorities. These are priorities that were set out and approved by council in June of 2022. A little bit about property taxes. Property taxes are to fund our services. So they're a significant and necessary part of a municipality, including the City of Medicine Hat. This revenue is used to fund services to the community, such as police and emergency services, including 911, parks, roads, trails, facilities and programs, such as our pools, our rinks, the Big Marble Go Center, culture and entertainment, such as Co-op Place and the Esplanade, transit, the library. Here's some context related to the proposed 4% increase. First of all, it was a key budget assumption that was directed by council. So the 4% revenue increase directed by council in July of 2022, and that was after consideration of a 6% increase option that was outlined as an option that council considered. Municipal inflation, tax revenue, fees, charges are all aligned with municipal inflation. The current national inflation rate is 6.9%. Like individuals in Canada and businesses who are facing pressures from inflation, the City of Medicine Hat is also facing inflation pressures. Our municipal inflation is forecast to be approximately 4% in 23 and 24. When I look back and do a calculation of what our average tax revenue increase was over the last 5 years, that's from 2017 to 2022, it was 2.86% per year. Community perceptions. So Ipsos did complete a survey this summer, and they highlighted the dichotomy between taxes and services. And the community opinion in this area was evenly split. So, and it was evenly split between focus on taxation, so increased taxation to preserve our current services, or reduce services. This is not unusual when you look at surveys from other communities. I also did some benchmarking, comparison of tax increases in other similar municipalities. And we looked at 8 other municipalities. That includes all the mid-sized cities, with the exception of Wood Buffalo. We also included Calgary and Edmonton. The average tax increase proposed for those is 4.26%. Our 4% proposal means a median home in Medicine Hat, which would be assessed at $289,000, would see an average property tax increase of $110 per year, or $9.20 per month. I do want to, again, reiterate the broad objectives that we had set out and presented on November the 7th, and to state this budget has been prepared to achieve the following objectives. Number 1, to reflect in advance council's strategic priorities, and those priorities are defined as where are we going. We also included a draft business plan, and the business plan is administration's response to that to define how we're going to get there. The business plans include departmental mandates, structures, key objectives, initiatives, and performance measures. Second objective, to preserve the high quality of municipal and utility services that are valued by residents. Again, Ipsos survey that was released in August reported a high satisfaction amongst residents with services, with particular comments on the courteousness of staff as a service highlight. The third objective, providing a competitive property tax rate and utility rate environment in the city. The City of Calgary recent 2021 survey of property tax and utility charges consistently ranks Medicine Hat as one of the lowest property tax and utility charges for a single detached home amongst the respondents of the survey. The fourth objective is to balance financial sustainability while maintaining organizational health. Treasury management does remain prudent in terms of executing existing city policies, and that's on debt, investment, and reserves. And we're in a different position today than we were just a few years ago in 2018 when we presented our last multi-year budget. Accordingly, this budget was prepared and presented with consideration of both of these dimensions. Number 1, financial sustainability, and number 2, organizational health. In conclusion, and the next steps, we are respectfully requesting council consideration and approval of the 23 and 24 operating and capital budgets for the tax base, which is municipal and Invest Medicine Hat, the commodity base, which is our Comco business, and the rate base, which is utilities and electric and gas distribution. As set out in the Municipal Government Act, we are required to have budgets in place by January the 1st. Once these budgets are approved, the next steps will include, number 1, debenture bylaws will be prepared and presented to council for approval, and that's to fund our capital funding for 23 and 24, and we expect those to be presented to council in early 2023. Number 2, the tax rate bylaws will be presented to council for their consideration in the second quarter of 2023. This budget is our recommendation on the best use of taxpayers and ratepayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. I anticipate that many of us still have questions. I can start with mine. So I've heard you say that in your closing comments that in administration's opinion, this budget advances our strategic priorities. I still don't have comfort around that. And I think it's been fairly clearly stated by council that we're looking for additional clarity. And I, at this point in time, don't have that comfort or clarity. From my questions that I sent out on November 5th, that the answers were posted online by city staff. I still have a couple of outstanding questions. So if a program is ending or being, a program or service is ending or being discontinued, is that specifically highlighted in the budget for council awareness? Managing Director Egert, go ahead.
So I would ask each of the managing directors to highlight that. In our particular area, our day-to-day business continues. We do a lot of transactional and customer service work. We pay bills, we deal with vendors, we approve RFPs, and that continues day to day. In addition to that, what we've included in our business plans are those items that we noted in the council strategic plan, and included in that includes labor resources, capital resources. So I don't know if the other managing directors could comment on that.
So if there are programs or services that are being discontinued, so this kind of harkens back to the whole Moose Crestwood Pool discussion that we had during the last budget, are they specifically noted for council consideration if something is being discontinued or the service is being removed? Managing Director Mastel.
Your worship, I am confirming with the directors, I'm not aware of any program or service that's being discontinued in public services. We will continue to introduce transit on demand in our transit system, so that may see the configuration of routing continue to evolve, but I can't think of any program or service specifically in the public services division.
Managing Director Maines.
Yes, Your Worship. For managing infrastructure, I am not aware of any program discontinuation in this budget, nor would I expect it to have been highlighted unless specifically asked by council for that in the council in the budget preparation.
I did ask for it on November 5th, 2022, and we asked for it during the last budget as well.
All right, I apologize.
Yeah. Managing Director Pancoast.
Your Worship, nothing that I'm aware of out of our division is being discontinued.
Managing Director Egert.
Yes, so as I mentioned, for corporate services, we continue to do our day-to-day business. I'm not aware of any reduced service levels or elimination of any services that we supply either to the organization or to the community.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, we did discuss at various times during last year's budget deliberations, and I believe during the assumptions conversation, although I might be off on the dates, discussion of looking for efficiencies, scanning programs or policies that were initiated under previous councils that perhaps this council would not view as a priority. Has that scan been done, and what additional efficiencies did you find or reject?
So through the chair, Mayor Clark, and I will make some initial comments and also get my colleague, Managing Director Pancoast's comments as well as it relates to work process. We are in corporate services looking at various work process efficiency projects that are intended to leverage our existing systems, but also to provide services better either to the organization that we serve or the community. That's one part of an area that we're looking at, more of an innovative approach on how to improve or create more efficiencies in our system. The other main topic is how we support our employees in the organization to help them become more prepared to deliver services in the organization. So it's serving those as well.
Any other comments on looking for efficiencies? Managing Director Pancoast?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. It's a little bit of a difficult question to answer because it is part of our regular routine to review what is occurring and where we can drive continuous improvement, particularly with respect to process. We certainly, within the budget, do have some items that are directly intentional at looking at process efficiencies, including what Managing Director Egert had indicated in the finance and HR side of things. That's a very intentional focus simply because it is cross-functional with broad impacts, a larger project that we're clearly looking at from an efficiency perspective. But in everything we do, we're or at least regularly eyeing that lessons learned concept as to how did that happen and how can we learn from that and move forward and revisit our process accordingly. So it's more of a state of mind as opposed to points in time of looking at specific projects.
And if I can, Your Worship, as well from Energy and Infrastructure, when we look at an approved budget, that to us is not the final answer. It's the maximum answer. So as we look at these projects and as we proceed on their planning and their execution, we're continually looking for how we can make that the most cost-efficient project that we can. From that side, we are cognizant that the budget in our minds sets the upper limit for that spend, but we strive to bring it under budget where we can and when we can from that side. So that is a common theme in all of our projects running forward, but we never, having said that, we never compromise on safety and we never compromise on regulatory compliance. However, in other areas, we strive for the best bids we can and the best execution of the projects. And that's continuous throughout both budget years.
Thank you. So I guess from my perspective, we as a council haven't really ever seen an inventory of programs and policies that were initiated or directed by previous councils. Does that exist somewhere? Managing Director Pancoast?
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly at even the functional service level, we haven't done a collection in a centralized spot of everything that we do and to what service level. And that was one of the things that we referenced as part of our division, that part of our objectives is to do a bit of a blueprint, starting with an inventory of those key functions so that we could start documenting and articulating where current state is to test whether that should shift going forward.
So if we were wanting to identify those items, do a complete inventory, is that captured in the current budget?
Yes, Mayor Clark, as part of our staff, we will be able to work with the teams directly to collect that initial information. Certainly everyone has a sense of what they're up to today. It's just a little bit difficult to articulate it in a streamlined way. And that's what we're looking to build upon, is to capture that centralized inventory so that we could start making decisions and resource allocations from there.
Thank you, Managing Director Pancoast. So another follow-up question from my November 5th questions about the short, medium, and long-term strategy for airport development. My understanding from what Director Bohan replied is that the air service attraction and retention program, despite the fact that it was below the line in this budget, so it wasn't funded in this budget, it is actually funded from another source, a previously approved MOE. Can you confirm that?
Your Worship, I'll turn to Director Bohan for a robust answer.
Thank you. Director Bohan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, actually, we had funding, pre-existing funding for this exact project from the federal government. And it does fall outside of the overall airport master plan. It sits adjacent to it, and it's a constantly evolving program. So we've got a project proposal to take that forward into the early in the new year, so we can begin the recovery from some of the most recent impacts to air service. And we'll be contacting air service stakeholders in the community to help us develop that information.
Thank you very much. With respect to the energy modernization, I asked the question about why it's being delayed till 2025. And the response was that it was delayed until the completion of the environmental framework to assure alignment. I am, given our business units, an energy modernization strategy seems mission critical. Could it be that these plans and programs could be developed concurrently with sufficient collaboration or additional resources?
Your Worship, they've been continuously ongoing. They just have not been formalized in alignment with that proposed environmental framework from that side. So the modernization, if we reflect on NGPR circa 2015 to what our business looks like today, we heard Managing Director Egert speak to the diminishment of the well count. We're all aware of our efforts on our energy transition. So I would say that those are very much forefront and center and are ongoing. But from a formal perspective, what that would look like in the statement, it should naturally follow the environmental framework, given what we're talking about is an environmental transition.
Okay, so what is the $400,000 for energy modernization in relation to? What would that be spent on?
If I can, Your Worship, turn over to Director Mach on that, if he's available.
Thank you. Your Worship, the $400,000 specifically pertained to reducing carbon footprint for corporate facilities. So it was things like solar panels or other alternative generation sources for corporate facilities. That's where the $400,000 came from. That was deferred, looking to align with the environmental framework to determine whether or not there would be a corporate level goal for a reduction in carbon intensity for city operated facilities.
Thank you, Director Mach. I'm still not fully understanding why we would have to wait for the environmental framework before we ensured that our business units were viable. Managing Director Pancoast.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I suspect that what they're looking to do, and Director Mach could confirm, is going above and beyond what's required for the business units. If the business case exists to do something today, they will look to do that today and look for that approval. It would likely look to have some expenditure where we're trying to hit a particular environmental target, and that would be the driver as opposed to a natural business case from a financial lens. And in order to drive towards targets like that, we would look to confirm alignment on strategic priorities with council and to confirm what those targets would be and related action plans to that, rather than simply make an assumption that we're wanting to spend in an area that goes above and beyond what would be required or economically feasible today.
All right. And we also discussed moving some funds into the Heritage Reserve on January 1st, 2023. And can you expand on the possibility of increasing that funding so that we see a transfer of a dividend from the Heritage reserve in compliance with the bylaw prior to 2025. Managing Director Egert.
All right, thank you, Mayor Clark, and thank you for the question in advance, and we've had the opportunity to analyze that, send the response back to council, and also post it on the website. The question revolved around, are we able to accelerate the endowment payment out of the Heritage Saving Reserve prior to 2025? And if so, what would it take to invest today to either accelerate that before 2025 or actually increase the amount in 2025? As you will note in there, the current bylaw does state certain provisions to protect the underlying capital for inflation, and within a high inflationary environment that we're in today, it makes some of the numbers do some really strange things. However, what we had calculated is if we could add $25 million to the Heritage Saving Reserve, that would allow us to accelerate some of the payments earlier, before 2025, or increase the amount from $5 to $7 million. That would take $25 million investing today for to be able to achieve $2 million per year in 23 and $2 million in 2024. And to increase it to $7 million endowment would require $35 million investment today. The one challenge or issue is where would you get that amount from? And if you take it out of the actual reserve account, you'll cannibalize on the investment return from that reserve, which is already included in the full budget. The only thing that I could offer is, as we monitor the distributable cash or the dividend calculation to the end of the year, and that will be most likely confirmed in an end of January, early February. We'll have a better indication as to how close to the estimated $83 million that's included in the resolution we are, whether it's higher or whether we've met the 83. So if it's higher, that is definitely an option for council to consider at that time.
Thank you, Managing Director Egert. I don't see any other speakers. Does anyone have any additional questions? Councillor Sharps.
Oh, sorry, my speaker thing wasn't working, just so you're aware. So yes, I do have a comment and a motion actually that I'm going to make. So I appreciate all the work that city managers, or sorry, the managing directors have done and all the questions that you're asking or answered for us, but I'm still kind of struggling with some of the questions. But in an effort not to hold up anything, I've prepared a motion that I'm going to throw on the table for us to talk about. So bear with me because it is lengthy. So I move that council, whereas Section 207 of the Municipal Government Act establishes the Chief Administrative Officer, also known as the City Manager, as the administrative head of the municipality, and whereas council for the City of Medicine Hat is currently recruiting for the position of City Manager, and whereas the City Manager has the authority to assess the hiring requirements for that organization, I move that council direct the acting City Manager to implement a hiring freeze for all vacant positions within the organization, with the exception of the positions for fire, police, and the 4 new positions under E&I division respecting plant operations, until such a time that council has by resolution appointed a permanent city manager.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the table that has been seconded. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I have a question. Councillor Knotel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark. Through the chair, likely to one of the managing directors or perhaps our city manager, Feltham. How will this affect our service levels moving forward if we're not able to fill the holes? Maybe not service levels. How will it affect our goals related to our strategic plan in the near future or immediate future?
Can I ask a clarifying question first to Councillor Sharps? Councillor Sharps, is it your intention that the new positions would have a hiring freeze, or all positions in the entire city, even ones that are currently posted, would be frozen?
So I'm just, would you like me to repeat my actual thing?
I can
Yeah,
see it.
I did say new. I might have stuttered, but I did say new.
It says
New positions for the, okay, let me. do-
vacant. It says vacant.
With the exception of the new positions for the fire department, police service, and the 4 positions under the energy and infrastructure division.
Right, but your motion asks for a hiring freeze for all vacant positions except those new positions. Is that your intention?
Sorry, that should be exception of the positions. So can I reread that to you? Would that be all right, so we're all on the same page?
I'm just wondering what you mean by vacant positions. So is that including the vacant positions, so when I'm reading it, it would include positions that are currently posted, positions that have existed for 20 years, but someone retires, creating a vacant position. That's your intention, is to not fill those positions either. The only positions that you're agreeing to be filled are the new positions that you've outlined in your motion.
Okay. Yeah, I felt like that got more confusing. So it's all positions to be, the existing positions are fine. It's any new position that they came to the budget with is, I'm asking for a freeze with the exception of fire, police, and the 4 energy and infrastructure. That's why I'm happy to reread it so it's clear.
That's not what it says. So right
know-
now, it says all vacant positions.
Mayor
So-
Clark, I didn't read it as per what it says. I amended it when I read it.
Okay, you can read it again then, please. Thank you.
I'm going to skip the whereases. So I move that council direct the acting city manager to implement a hiring freeze for all new vacant positions within the organization, with the exception of the positions, new positions for the fire, or all positions for the fire, police, and 4 positions under the E&I division, respecting plant operations until such time as that council has by resolution appointed a permanent city manager.
To you, can you answer Managing Director Egert? Can you answer Councillor Knodl's question?
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Knodl. And your question was, if I recall, what impact does it have by deferring these new positions on the service levels or on delivery of the council's strategic plan? Yep. I'm glad that council made that clarification, because I had the same concern. So thank you. You're referring to only deferring those new requested positions. We do hire, recruit approximately 250 positions in a year, and some of that is employees moving from one position to another within the city, which causes a bit of a domino effect. We also have seasonal employees that we would be hiring here very soon as well. So I'm glad to hear that those aren't included in the hiring freeze for your resolution. With respect to a deferral or delay, I think it would depend on how long that deferral or delay is. I believe that, and I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues, is that it does take time to recruit and to advertise, recruit, interview with a notice period to get someone here on site. So even if this was approved today, it would probably take a few months before we have those recruited and staffed appropriately. So any unusual delay would cause a significant issue with our ability to meet council's plan. And I can speak for corporate services, and I'll let the other managing directors speak for their areas. But a lot of what we're asking for in corporate services is a direct and significant response to council's plan as it relates to people and culture and development within the city.
Councillor Robbins?
I didn't know if any of the other managing directors wanted to answer the question.
Managing Director Pancoast.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have the two noted that were previously approved in January that we had already commenced the recruitment for the stakeholder relations individual and are looking forward to immediately starting the recruitment for the safety codes. We are concerned about service delivery impact there.
Managing Director Mastel.
Through your worship, it would probably be a different update for each of the positions, but a number of them have already been resourced with temporary or consulting support. So the priorities of council and the work that we're trying to undertake, we are working on a resourcing plan. It is not an optimal one, and hence why we have recommended the positions that we did within the budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. From E&I's perspective, the proposed resolution would not have any impact. We were targeting no net additions with the exception of the new facility to be built in 2023, the aforementioned 4 positions.
Thank you. Managing Director, Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, giving me new titles and a new job. My concern was sort of, as has been articulated here, that for hiring freeze of all positions, there's got to be some sort of exemption process, and that takes a while to set up and manage. I'm concerned that there's already sort of hiring process and recruitment going on, of realizing that some of those positions are either contract or temporary or had already been approved before. I understand where Councillor Sharps is coming from and why she's made this motion. I'm not going to support it. I think it crosses the line, jumps over the line into operational, and I prefer to stay on the governance side of this discussion.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. Really, I think a question for Councillor Sharps. I'm just curious if, does this, are we still planning on going ahead with the vote regarding the 4%, the tax thing? Is this separate from that? Is it, we're going to go ahead and vote on our tax increase and then but hold the hiring? Is that your intent?
Yes, I mean, we have to have a budget, as we all know, approved by the end of the year. That leaves one more council meeting. So in an effort not to stall them or do anything crazy, I'm trying to make sure they can run. However, I think it is, we are so close to our hiring, or finishing our recruitment process, I can talk with the city manager, that I don't think that we should be circumventing that individual, and they need to come in and do an assessment and decide with the managing directors. Maybe that person has a different strategy, maybe that person has a different outlook, and I really want to make sure that we set up that position for success and let them come in and have those conversations. So I'm trying to pull this out of the budget talk so we can just look at the increases, because really people were upset over the numbers of the increase people that we're adding. So let's get that off the table, talk about budget, and then we can maybe get this resolved and move forward. Does that answer your question? Sorry, Andy. Councillor McGrogan.
No, it does. I was just, I'm guess curious of the process here as well. And so what I'm understanding then is your proposal is, the intent is to have this new city manager, once they're in place, to get up to speed and agree with the, I guess, organizational structure before we make it a permanent thing prior to their landing. Is that right?
It is. I think that everybody in the organization is working so hard, but I also think that, you start to lose perspective. I drive home every night, and guess what? It's the same ride. So I see the same things that I always see, and I don't always see something new that's in the way. So we have an opportunity with the new city management, with a new, fresh city manager, with a new, fresh perspective and eyesight on things. I think we should take advantage of that and let them decide how their organization is going to be set up. I have no intention of getting into operations, but I have every intention of making sure that when we hire our next direct report, they are given all the tools to be able to do their job effectively. Now, the reason, before anybody asks me, why I exempted fire, police, and energy is they did an exemplary job at explaining, number one. I mean, it was boots on the ground. With police, I mean, it's really, really one position. It isn't five. There was movement. The fact that the chief was honest with us and came down and told us what they were doing shouldn't be held against them. And the four, Director Maines, or Managing Director, very clearly explained what that was. So the rest of it, again, it's not that I'm getting into operations. I just want the city manager to be able to have a quick look at it, make their decision, and if they give it the thumbs up, we move forward. It's that easy. But this way, we don't hold up the budget.
Councillor McGrogan?
Thank you. I hate to be that just one more thing guy. So obviously then, with the intent of this, we're going to go ahead and vote on the wage increase. I guess I have a question for staff here. So if we say hiring freeze, if this motion is taken at face value, you will still have the ability to hire contracted people, consultants, temporary people to fill the roles. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that will continue. But it's just, I guess, whether they're considered full-time or permanent or whatever the case might be. Is that right?
From my perspective, having heard this motion, that would be correct.
Councillor Dumanowski?
Excuse me, Your Worship, I appreciate the decision or the motion put before us. I think timing is escaping us, otherwise I don't see it as maybe as great an impediment as some may see it. As has been communicated, this would exempt the new hires that have been put forward for fire, police, and the residuals plant that will be constructed. I think, as has been indicated, those are well-intentioned, idealized placements that need to be moved forward on. My support for the motion is not to suggest that I'm trying to get operational, and I don't think anyone is. I think there is a unique opportunity. We have a recruitment process, as I understand it, well underway. There is the strong likelihood that a new candidate could be coming forward in very short time. And it does, in some ways, it's no different than a council passing some significant motion before an election that fetters the next election, the elected officials. And I marry that or use that as a kind of a juxtaposition to kind of suggest that a new city manager may come in with a different lens, and certainly organizationally will perhaps want to look at some changes. We've had quite a bit of that lately. But if we're truly going to enable a new city manager to come into the organization without significant impediment to the management role that he or she will have, minus those in the fire, police, and residuals plant, I think because it's going to be done in very short time, I'm comfortable in a delay. I don't see it as a dramatic statement that we're not supportive of the business plans that are come forward. I see it as a pause more than a stoppage, and I can live with that. And I think it won't prove to be problematic. The only other thing I would add in there is, for me, is we have, and I know it's forthcoming, without getting into obviously any kind of level of detail. I do know we still have some unfinished business when it comes to negotiations with our 3 bargaining groups. We have built business plans on some, predicated numbers, but we're not sure where those will go, and we have a duty to ensure that those are all captured. Again, the timing of the necessity to pass a budget doesn't work in our favor when it comes to that. These are legitimate, warranted negotiations. that are playing out in a fair way and a reasonable way, but they have not been fully realized, it seems to me, in this budget. And so, again, I have that small hesitation there. So for those reasons, I will be supporting the motion.
Councillor Hirsch?
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. Certainly when I do my rounds within the community, I think a lot of people are just trying to understand, and quite frankly, myself, you know, where we reinstate, and I guess I was part of the previous council that looked at expenses from line by line almost, it felt like. And it could be argued that it might have been over the top, but here we're in a unique situation which, as timing where you have it, we have a potential of a new city manager to be hired imminently. So ultimately I think the intent of the motion was a little bit of status quo right now, which we've been able to operate, keep the lights on, et cetera, and provide services to the community. I appreciate the idea that there might be still a temporary use of consultants, et cetera. But I think it goes back to what my comments were, the budget meeting that we had, to state that anytime we add positions, the argument is that it's permanent and forever. And I think to have that sober second thought to say, hey, Mr. or Miss whoever going to be as the new city manager, to step in and say, you have now all the tools at your disposal, including a projection to add more bodies or not, to reallocate any type of funding or not. I like the idea of having that set up for the person that, quite frankly, we would want to have as our city manager for some time. So I do echo Councillor Dumanowski's point that this would be just a pause. I think separating that out from the budget, I think around the horseshoe, I felt that trepidation on the addition of the new positions. The math and the budget in terms of commodities increasing and inflation and all that kind of stuff is well documented and understood. It's just the position thing that I think we just want to have an opportunity to look at. So thank you.
Councillor Knodel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark, through the chair. I feel like a lot of the work that we've asked staff to do in our strategic plan requires human beings and is related to a culture shift. And I absolutely respect that there may be value in pausing hiring until we have a new city manager. I don't know if a hiring freeze is truly going to have a great enough impact to slow recruitment. Sorry, I'm going to clarify that. Will the impact that we're looking for, empowering a city manager, come from a hiring freeze? I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if this is a strategic move that will turn into what we're looking for. I think what we're looking for is requires human beings to be in order and doing the work that we've asked them to do. So I'm not going to support this motion, but I respect where it's coming from, and we'll see what happens.
Councillor Hyder?
Thanks, through the chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Sharps for bringing this forward this evening. I too understand the wherewithal of doing a budget. I too understand, I think it was the number of full-time positions, like Councillor Hirsch said, that everyone kind of took a back step and went, why do we need all these? But I do support the fire, I do support the police, I do support Managing Director Haynes's position. I think, like Councillor Sharp said, I talked to the fire and I've talked to the police, and they make a good case, and boots on the ground. I do believe we need to give the new CEO an opportunity to make it he or she's place, to work with our current administration and work alongside with them to make decisions for these other positions. So I will be supporting the motion.
Councillor Van Dyke?
Sorry, I was still thinking. I was wondering if I could make a friendly amendment to the motion and include under the exempted positions, the safety code position under strategic management and analysis.
Can you provide further detail?
If I could have Managing Director Pancoast discuss what that position is about.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke, that position really is to help with a current stopgap. Our manager of safety codes is currently on medical leave for 6 months, and we are facing the potential of either imminent or near-term retirements. So this role really would be intended to help with ongoing service delivery of safety codes, and it isn't a role that we could readily look for a temp or contractor for. So we would look to move into recruitment as soon as we are able to.
Thank you. Do you have anything? No. So I appreciate that, Managing Director Pancoast. I guess my thing is if retirements are imminent, we probably would have known they were retiring. So I guess I'm not seeing that as urgent, and I'm only asking for a short period. Again, we are so close to hiring a city manager. I believe that once they are here, they really will be able to work with you very quickly. And I just want that person to be able to have that say in their organization. And again, I don't think a couple of weeks, we're going into Christmas, recruitment comes to a grinding halt usually at Christmas regardless. So I will not accept the friendly amendment unless you would like to change the amendment altogether.
No, I just, given the fact that we hear a lot from the community about permitting and timeliness of response from the city, I don't want to delay that any more than necessary.
Sorry, and I would agree with that. I'm just not convinced that's where the delays and timeliness are. So I guess, I mean, I went through some issues myself in the last couple of weeks with certain things, and it was just programming. So it's not always clear cut. And I guess I'm not convinced that a safety codes officer is the reason that we're delayed, nor do I think it's staff, nor do I think it's one particular thing. I think it's a accumulation of things that are happening. So again, I guess that's where I'm going back to. Instead of us getting into operations, if we could just wait till we make an offer, I just, if people are coming up to retirement, we've known. So I think that is not the best reason. So that's just my take on it.
Councillor McGrogan?
Thank you. Through the chair, I've asked questions, but I guess I haven't stated my view, and so I just wanted to do that for the record. I like the idea of the city manager coming in with a more of a open canvas than one that's been completed. Therefore, for that reason, I am going to support this. I will say that I've had excellent communication with the managing directors and the city manager about the positions. I've gotten a lot of clarity on a lot of the positions, and I'm very comfortable and I'm thankful. And I think I've learned a lot through that process. So I want to be clear that, like I said, we are extremely close, within days, I hope, of being there. So let's, I'm going to support it just to give the city manager some autonomy. I know if I was coming in the operation into the city, I would like to have those conversations with our managing directors, make sure that we're heading the way that we all want to go. So I guess for that reason, and again, supporting everything that I've heard thus far, minus a couple of minor issues which wouldn't stop me from approving this. I'm thankful for where we've gotten so far, but I think it'd be prudent to take a pause and place our city manager and then continue. Thank you.
All right, so I understand the desire to have the city manager do an overall organization review. I don't think it's going to happen in the first month or the second month of their time being here that they'll be up to speed enough. I would be in favor of a motion to not fund certain positions, but I feel like once we've funded the position, then we've given this city manager, the managing directors authority to hire in those positions. So our role here, I think, is to either fund or not fund positions. And I'm not sure the value of determining to fund the positions and then having the city manager do a review, as opposed to, we don't think that these positions are necessary, so we're not going to fund them. And the city manager will also obviously do a review once they're here to determine whether they are necessary. I'm sure the managing directors would state their cases. So for that reason, I agree that we haven't heard enough or a cogent argument for certain of the positions, but I just think that this is kind of the opposite direction. Like, I would not fund the positions rather than fund them and then put a freeze on them. Because if we don't think they're necessary, then why are we funding them? So for that reason, I wouldn't support the motion. Councillor Hirsch?
You saw me reach. You know, to be brutally honest, it's no different that we make that recommendation. We indicate that we're having a willingness, if it's prudent to do so on the direction of the new city manager. It's no different than we just talked about a potential of $500,000 bathroom. Does that mean that we're gonna fund that directly and it's gonna be $500,000? No. But what we're indicating is that we're gonna do a thorough review, just like we're gonna do a thorough review of the bathroom, sort of grab that comparison. But that's going to be the case, is that we're gonna look at, okay, from a best practice point of view, we've got a new city manager who's now taking over, jumping in the driver's seat. There might be a lineup on day one of that person's office in terms of welcome and I need this position. But realistically, it goes back to us being governors and not operations. So we're actually putting the onus back to the operator, the number one employee that reports to council. So on a go-forward basis, this individual will take a look to see if so far, what I feel like is that the budget would encompass those positions. And at such time, it would be a go, no-go with that city manager to determine whether or not they move forward with it. And that's kind of what the essence of what I feel the motion is made.
All right, seeing no further comments or questions, City Manager Feltham, did you have any comments or questions?
Sorry, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around all of this. I think it's a compelling argument that the person that replaces me be given appropriate flexibility to ensure that where possible, the positions align with both their perspective, which will be an external perspective. So I do think that there is certainly merit in ensuring that the person who becomes city manager has that flexibility. So I think we want to be careful around messaging. From my perspective, I look at my colleagues, the managing directors, and I cannot think of a stronger group of individuals who are more dedicated to the city, who have brought forward their strongest beliefs about the importance of their areas and the resources it will take for their areas to succeed. So I'm incredibly supportive of each of them and the work that they've put in up till now. But I certainly understand that a new city manager coming in, if he or she has that additional flexibility, may allow them to work with council in allocating positions in perhaps a slightly different way, or providing a greater degree of assurance and affirmation back to council. So as I was saying, in these processes, you try and wrap your mind around them and understand. I'm always concerned about governance and the role of council versus the role of administration. I don't believe that I'm particularly concerned in this case, in that ultimately it will be administration that will be making administrative decisions. May not be me, but it will be administration. And so I think that's also consistent with our governance model.
Okay, I want to read the motion one more time, and I do have an additional question about it. So at the end, my understanding is that the hiring freeze would be until a city manager is appointed. Is that your intention? So as soon as they're appointed, the freeze would end?
No, my intention is to, when the city manager is ratified, they can make the decision to come back to council and say, hey, I reviewed it, I'm good, let's go. And I'm more than happy to support that at that time.
Okay, well, that is not what the current motion says. So if you could, we can take a brief recess perhaps and just maybe get it typed out in the manner that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate Councillor Dumanowski and Hirsch trying to finesse my motion. This isn't my thing, but I think we know what my point is here. But if somebody could help me finesse it to what I think it's exactly what I wanted to say, but obviously that's not what you're hearing. So let's get this right and we can get it going. If we could move for a recess, that'd be great. Can I make a motion for a recess?
Seconder?
Oh, I'll second.
All right, we'll vote on taking a 15-minute recess. That's unanimous. And council, we will meet in L1. All right. We are called back to order. We have the motion on the screen. So council direct the acting city manager to implement a hiring freeze for all new vacant positions within the organization. I would like to make a friendly amendment that it's all new positions in this budget. Because I'm so confused about the vacant, but I'll just read it and then. It is, oh. Thank you. Council direct the acting city manager to implement a hiring freeze for all new positions within the organization, with the exception of the positions for the fire department, police service, and the 4 new positions under the energy and infrastructure division respecting plant operations until such time that council has, by resolution, appointed a permanent city manager, and the city manager comes before council and confirms the positions are required to meet council's strategic goals. Councillor Canoto?
Friendly amendment to include the city manager. We're not freezing the hiring of the new city manager.
It's not a new position.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so are there any additional questions, comments, motions? Councillor Van Dyke.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to make a motion to amend to include the exemption of the coordinator of safety codes.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on that amendment to the motion? Seeing none, we will vote on the amendment. That passes. So if we could go back to the resolution screen. So are you making that motion or making that edit, Jessica? You are. All right. Can I get the speakers list? Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we will vote on the motion as amended. And that passes. So now continuing with budget deliberations, are there any other motions? Councillor Canoto?
All right, I'll find my page. Okay, so based on feedback that I received from the Chamber of Commerce after our rate changes and offsite levy conversations about the business community not feeling like they had enough of an opportunity to give feedback on these changes coming forward and how they affect the business community, I move that council direct administration to consult the Chamber of Commerce as a voice of the business community for feedback prior to large projects or changes, including things like rate changes and offsite levies that impact business owners.
Can we get that motion up? Can you provide some context for how it connects with the budget before we see if there's a seconder?
So in regards to the rate package changes that we approved recently, this would be for future rate changes, future bylaw changes. This is just an opportunity to make sure that the voice of the business community is represented in our briefing notes, and that the voice of the business community is illuminated in the documentation that we get, so they feel that they've been heard. Because I think sometimes there's consultation that happens, but their voice isn't reflected in the documentation that we get.
In reviewing the motion that's on the screen, is that accurate? Does that accurately reflect your motion?
I feel like the language is a little bit convoluted at the end. I think we could just say projects or changes that impact business owners. Yeah, let's not give an example. So council direct administration to consult the Chamber of Commerce as a voice to the business community for feedback prior to large projects or changes that impact business owners. Yes.
I'm not really seeing how this is budget related. Do we have a seconder before? Okay, not seeing a seconder. Go ahead.
Okay, so clarifying question. This evening, there's no flexibility for bringing any motions forward that aren't related to budget. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so you can make motions with respect to budget because that's business arising. But if you want to make a motion that's not related to something that's already on the agenda, you have to do a notice of motion. And that gives council and managing directors and city manager an opportunity to prepare for the motion so that we're not dealing with it. Yeah.
So for this particular motion, I could, in theory, have the opportunity to bring it forward at another time with more information, with a notice of motion?
It wasn't seconded, so it wasn't defeated. So yes, you could bring it forward at a different time.
Okay. I'll give this one a go. So this is based on the feedback that many of us got over the weekend from people that are part of Bike Medicine Hat and other cycling groups, as well as those that just enjoy cycling in the community. So this is related to budget in that we have line items related to active transportation, a traffic safety study, and multimodal investments that are visible. So we'll start with activating a Vision Zero model to eliminate bike deaths in Medicine Hat effective today. That is more of a tangential motion. And then the more specific motion is point 2. So I'll just keep going and you can correct me afterwards.
You could,
if you're okay with that.
if you just read it and then we can have discussion on it.
That sounds really good. So I move that council fund and enact both the active transportation plan and traffic safety study in Q1 of 2023 so that our multimodal investments can be visible in the community no later than summer of 2024.
Is there a seconder?
I'm going to second that so we can discuss it.
Thank you. So we heard a bit from various divisions on this. The traffic safety study is not currently budgeted for Q1 of 2023, and I imagine the Vision Zero would be something arising potentially out of the traffic safety study or the multimodal transportation study. So perhaps we could get Managing Director Maines to comment on the logistics of the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. I might just initially comment, it seems to preordain a conclusion before the study has been done, that these developments will be in the community in 2024. We would expect that this would be an iterative consultative process as we talk about what is best for the community in that study moving forward. That would be my initial comments on the motion. Certainly understand and appreciate what's behind it, but I would ask that we give the department, the divisions, time to reflect on this, do the consultation, and then come back with a recommendation. As I said, this appears to be telling us what we're going to be doing, and I don't think we're there yet. Director Bohan, I believe you're still on the line. If you have additional comments, I know you've been very involved and also in the public consultation as well.
Thank you. With your permission, Your Worship, Vision Zero is a very aspirational type of objective for the department. It's something that we're considering right now. It's not an inexpensive or a very well-defined concept. It's something that we would like to tackle as part of our transportation safety plan. I think it's an excellent objective for us to take a look at. But again, understanding the parameters and the scope of what that might entail for the city in terms of actual cost. But I do support the concept of taking feedback from our community partners and community stakeholders and take a look at how we might integrate their perspectives with Vision Zero in the transportation safety plan. Definitely part of the program going forward.
And to be clear, the transportation safety plan is budgeted for 2023.
Yes, Your Worship, that's our objective. That's what we forecast. And with your approval, council's approval, we'll move forward with that. And again, we believe we can take a lot of measures to try and address a number of those community stakeholder groups, including Bank Medicine Hat.
Councillor Robbins?
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, thank you. Turn my button off. Councillor Knodel for bringing this up. This came up. I want to say the idea of Vision Zero in the fall of 2021, and then of course we heard at council about it as well. And my concern about it is just as Managing Director Maines has said, is that I think that if the direction is to explore this, that's different than activate it. Vision Zero has advantages and disadvantages. And some of the disadvantages are if you use traffic calming like bollards, or you use speed bumps, things like that, to try to get people to slow down in certain areas. That has an impact on snow clearing, that has an impact on emergency vehicles, that has an impact on the community around where those traffic calming devices are. So while there's a lot that can be done to make the streets safer for both cyclists, pedestrians, scooter users, everyone who chooses an alternate form of transport other than an active form of transport other than a motor vehicle. And I certainly think there's lots of reasons to promote that. It's a community wellness issue, and that's part of our strategic plan. And so all of that is very interesting and exciting to me. But there's got to be some really extensive thought about Vision Zero, about how it would work in our community. And so I think that's what Managing Director Maines is really talking about is, and obviously Director Bohan knows quite a bit about it as well, is that it's expensive, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. But also all of that consultation that needs to take place to see what's even possible within that. And can we actually achieve all of the, because there's a lot of goals of Vision Zero, and can we achieve all of them? And do they fit in our community? Now, the good news, it started in Sweden, so I guess they figured out the snow plowing issues. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of consultation work to be done. But I like the idea of it. I like the safety. I like encouraging active transport. These are all things we should work towards. I just think with the traffic safety plan and knowing that this is already in the air at our leadership, that we're going to get some of those answers. And if we don't, I think the direction at that point could be explore this specific thing. So I'm not going to support it, not because it's not a great idea. I just think it's just not quite, the timing isn't right, and what we're asking the staff to do isn't quite what I'd like to do. I'd rather them explore it than activate it.
Councillor Hirsch.
Thanks, Your Worship, and I'm really not going to pile on here. I'm not going to support it either, only for the exact rationale that was given, that the study, which is going to be coming on, it looks like in 2023, what we're already getting to is activate a Vision Zero, which is already presumptive. So we're already at the remedy, and we're still not at having the consultation yet. So, and the interesting part is, we just talked about the Chamber of Commerce. It'd be interesting to get their perspective on this, because we ran into a situation before where we were talking about potentially speed restrictions, et cetera, and they've got delivery services that they need to get done. Their businesses have to operate. The time is kind of the money thing. So it's interesting, like, and I appreciate obviously the passion that you have on that, but I would just say, you know, let's take a pause, let the process unwind, and allow other user groups, other people that would be affected by this to have some say as well. So, thank you.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Your Worship, I agree with the last two speakers. I'm only adding my part in because I know at what point it was reached out, and I know that Carter Gromlich and his partner, I forget her name, came and spoke to committee, and we invited them to come to council, and sometimes if a lack of endorsement of the motion today, I don't want the lack of endorsement today to be an indication that there is no support. Completely not the truth. I understand the frustration, the sense of urgency to move these things forward, but there are a multitude of implications, and they have to be done methodically and within scope and within budget and broader consultation. We have lots of resident experts who will be able to contribute very immediately and meaningfully right away, but there will be others who will need to understand it in the broader context. So for the other reasons, I just can't support it today.
Seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the motion that council activate a Vision Zero model to eliminate bike deaths in Medicine Hat effective today, fund and enact the traffic safety study in Q1 of 2023 so that our multimodal investments can be visible in the community no later than summer of 2024. Councillor Knodel?
I just want to make sure that it's represented clearly. Active transportation plan and traffic safety study in Q1, just so that for the record, it's what I wrote here. So not only did I have active transportation plan, but also the traffic safety study, because that is the order that I was told earlier that they went in. Plan, yeah, active transportation plan and traffic safety study. Yep, thank you. Perfect.
Okay, so Councillor Van Dyke? Okay, so those are both already budgeted for in 2023, so no additional expenditure there. We will vote on the motion. And that is defeated. Are there any other motions to be made? Oh, on this, okay. Okay, so I have to step down from the chair So I believe Counselor Hyder, are you? Okay. I'm making a motion. I want to make a motion. Yeah. So can I make a motion?
Go ahead. Sorry. I'm new here. Go ahead, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. I move that administration present to council SMART, like SMART, capital letters, the acronym, corporate objectives directed at advancing council's strategic priorities by February 1st, 2023, and that administration work with council to arrive at a set of corporate objectives that are agreed to by council and administration by Q2 2023.
Is there a second? I'll second that.
May I,
Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, and through the chair, I understand what you're asking for, but I think I'm not actually speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but I've heard the discussion about when our new city manager is here, that we want them to be able to decide what they want staff to do, how they want to do it, and how they report back to us. And so I feel like this is perhaps a motion that should wait until we have a new city manager, and then the timelines could be set by the new city manager. So I agree with the motion in general. I just think it should wait until we have that new person in place, and they can set the timelines and the process for the managing directors. So I'm not going to agree, but I will probably if it was later.
Thank you. Councillor Hirsch?
Thanks, Councillor Hyder. You know, I just find this incredibly unorthodox, this approach to have motions kind of on the fly. I don't have any much of a background on this. Incredibly difficult for me to make a decision to support it when I don't really understand enough about it. I don't know if this is something that can be delegated to a committee for their review and then a recommendation brought forward in the normal process, with quite frankly a backgrounder for me to understand. I mean, at this point in time, I'm not comfortable supporting it.
Mayor Clark?
I would be okay with a referral to admin and ledge.
Okay, we can vote on that. We want to put it through admin and ledge.
Could I make a friendly amendment to your motion that that motion be referred to admin and ledge?
Second.
Thank you. We will vote on the amendment.
No, it was friendly. Can I just take back the chair? I'm taking back the chair. Okay, so now we have a number of motions that we have to get through in relation to budget deliberations, and we are at 10 to 10 right now. Perhaps we could have a motion to postpone item 9.2 and move to item 10.
Okay, I move that council adopt the minutes of the Admin and Ledge Review Committee.
Oh, we have to have a motion to postpone it.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you through Mayor Clark. The business arising that is not happening at the moment, which is approving the budgets. Never mind. It should be postponed to the next meeting. I'm out of order. Thank you.
Yes?
Sorry, I just have a question of clarification. So are we just going to deal with the remainder of the line items that have to do with budget? Or are we going to go through all these other bylaws?
Well, I had a notification that someone was going to make a motion to adjourn at 10 o'clock.
That would be
So
correct.
at this point, we need to select what it is that we are prioritizing for this meeting. And if no one wants to make a motion, then that's fine. So we don't have a motion on the table, we'll just move. Okay, Councillor Robbins?
I can't believe I'm the one to do this because I said I wouldn't, but I think that with the time and to make sure that we do this properly, that I need to make this motion, that we take the items under 9.2 and adjourn them to the next regular council meeting with the note that those would be the priority items at that meeting.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
All right, can we vote on that motion? And that passes. All right, moving on to item 10.1, Administrative and Legislative Review Committee, the minutes of November 28th, 2022.
Okay, I move that council adopt the minutes of the Admin and Ledge Review Committee meeting held on November the 28th, 2022, as presented for the corporate record.
Second.
And we'll vote. In the interest of time, are you all right if we skip the meeting highlights? Okay, moving on to 10.2, Corporate Services Committee meeting dated, minutes dated November 24th, 2022.
Your Worship, I move that council adopt the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting held on November 24, 2022, as presented for the corporate record.
Second.
And we will vote. Oh, question, sorry, back it up. Councillor Robbins?
Sorry, that was the committee meeting of November 24th? Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so my question is to the Chair of Corporate Services. So there is a note on the second page of appeals hearings. In 2020, there were 77 tax appeals filed. My question about it is that the 3 of the appeals resulted in a total adjustment of $435,000. But there's a reference to 77 tax appeals. So is the 435,000 in reference to 77 or just those 3? Or was that discussed at committee?
Through the chair, it was discussed, but at this time of the night, I have foggy mind. If we can have Mr. Eggert maybe speak to that, please.
All right, through the chair, it relates to those that went to hearing.
Okay, thank you. And there was some discussion of that in the, well, it would have been open or closed part of the meeting? Open? Well, it's in the minutes, so it would be open. Okay, thank you. I can figure it out on my own, thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, we will vote. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.2.2.
I move that council endorse the advocacy letter to Minister Shandro regarding fine revenue as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, we will vote on the motion. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.3, Economic Land and Strategic Planning and Development Committee, meeting minutes of November 17th, 2022.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the Economic Land and Strategic Planning and Development Committee meeting held on November 17th, 2022, as presented for the corporate record.
Second.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we will vote. And that's unanimous. Next up, item 10.3.2, review of bylaw 3472, the escort service bylaw.
I'd like to move that council direct administration to review bylaw 3472, the escort service bylaw, to ensure alignment with fees in other Alberta municipalities, reflect best practices and current legislation, and report back to committee.
Second.
Councillor Hirsch?
So thanks for that. Just, can you give me a backgrounder as how this came in front of council then?
Yes, I sure can. So I'll make a note of what I said, or I'll repeat what I said in committee when it came forward with the licenses and permits that come for renewal. And in reviewing it, I saw the cost attached to that license, and I felt that it was unusual. So I looked into it a little bit and saw that we are an outlier compared to other municipalities. So my reasoning behind this recommendation is that we know that individuals that engage in this line of work are vulnerable and at risk for exploitation. And I'm concerned that the high fees attached to this license are actually putting people at risk by pushing them to operate their business in an unlicensed capacity and putting them in dangerous situations, so that if something happens to them, if they're assaulted or something happens, they might not be comfortable coming forward for help or to police because they're practicing in an unlicensed manner because they can't afford the license. So I don't want the city to be in a position that we're putting people at risk by having fees of this nature. So I would just like a review of what other municipalities do and a review of the bylaw, and just in comparison.
So it's coming to council by way of the Economic Land and Strategic Planning and Development Committee, who discussed the motion and are recommending that council pass the motion. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hirsch?
Well, it does, but it doesn't state that in here.
It is business arising out of the Economic Land and Strategic Planning and Development Committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the motion. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.3.3.
I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4728, a bylaw to amend the amusement arcade billiard room bylaw.
Second.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, we will vote. That's unanimous.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4728.
Second.
Seeing no speakers, we will vote. That's unanimous.
I move that council unanimously consent to having third reading of bylaw 4728 at this meeting.
Second.
Councillor Hirsch?
So typically when you ask for third reading and get it all done in one night, there's some time pressure or something towards it. Can I understand why? Because typically when you go from second to third, there's time for the community to understand and have some opinion in regards to this. So just help me understand as to why we were looking for 3 readings tonight.
Managing Director Pancoast?
Thank you. Through the chair, this isn't related to a public hearing, statutory or non-statutory, where we certainly would have appropriate advertising and time for the community to weigh in. In this case, we had assumed we would be able to move forward, and the deadline pressure is the end of the year in order to have the fees and charges in effect for January 1st. Hopefully that helps.
Does it, Councillor Hirsch? Yes. Okay, Councillor Sharps.
So, I mean, I had quite a few questions on some of these items, but is it a deal breaker if this doesn't get in until February 1st? Is there a reason it has to be January 1st? Like the budget is, by MGA, does this have to be done by then?
Managing Director Pancoast.
I may need to defer to City Planner Director Brenda for that one, but this is tied directly into the planning and development assumed revenues within the budget as well. And I believe the bylaws are to take effect for January 1st. I'd have to clarify if, what happens if they don't pass, if that would mean the existing ones continue or if they would expire.
So through the chair, as far as I'm aware, yes, this needs to be in place because our fees are expiring at the end of the year. As far as what the result would be of waiting on them, though, I'm not sure if legal might have a comment on that. I'm not certain, to be honest.
Perhaps Managing Director Egert, I see you looking up and everybody's gone. If the assumptions are built into the budget, would that be the reason why we are needing to pass them coincidentally with the budget?
Subject to something that Ben, our legal counsel, would say, you're exactly right. Our budget assumption was for the entire year, the increase. Although the fees and charges for this division took multiple ways of establishing the amounts. Some were a flat increase, some were a comparison to other centers, and some were related more to cost. So I think with all fees, we try to get it in for the entire year to be in place by January the 1st for coordination and understanding in the community.
And to be fair, we do have, if we do first and second reading, we could give third reading or not at the next council meeting. City Solicitor Bullock, you were name checked, if you are on the line.
Hello, good evening to the jury. I don't have anything to add to what Commissioner Eggert said. I agree with his analysis on that. Thank you.
All right, so seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the motion to, for council to unanimously consent to having third reading of bylaw 4728 at this meeting. It is not unanimous.
It has to be unanimous.
So it is defeated. Moving on then to item 10.3.4. Councilor Sharps?
I'm about to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
May I say something?
We would need a seconder first.
Maybe nobody wants to
Seeing no
adjourn.
seconder, do we need, yeah, for adjournment, we need a seconder, right? As a motion? Yeah. Okay,
Sorry, I'll second the motion.
okay. Debate, Councillor Van Dyke?
Yes, I would just like to say that there's a timeliness issue to the first and second, unless council is willing to do all the readings on all of these bylaws at the next meeting. I just want you to consider that. That's what would be required of all of the rest of these motions to be made regarding permits and business licenses.
Councillor Robbins? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sharps?
No problem. I just feel like we need to get somewhat better at our time allocation here. So when I look at this, not to be rude, we all have to be back here first thing in the morning for, and stupid o'clock for some of us that our day starts 2.5 hours before we even get here. So I want to be good at what I do. I don't want to just approve these to say that I'm getting it done. I need to go through this properly. And these agendas are so heavy sometimes, and that's okay if we can get through them, but if we can't get through them, I think we need to manage our time effectively and properly. So that's why I put this motion on here.
Councillor Robbins?
I have seconded the motion, and I'm going to support it because I know that we have important business where everyone needs to be fresh. Tomorrow it starts early, it's going to be all day, and every member of council who can be involved will be involved in an extremely important task. And so I felt like, exactly like Councillor Sharps, I think that's the priority. And these particular bylaws, it seems like if we're rushing through them, we're not really giving them the thought and the purpose that they deserve. Anytime we change a bylaw, they all involve changing some fee that affects people. I'd like to be able to talk about it a little more fulsomely than we have time to at this particular moment. So for that reason, I'm supporting Councillor Sharps. I would normally quite happily sit here until the end of the 11, which is sort of our statutory limit unless we all agree otherwise. But I think with the important tasks tomorrow that would be ill-advised.
Councillor McGrogan?
Yeah, thank you. No, I respect the opinion. I was just going to say that we don't normally debate first and second reading, and I'm wondering if some of these need to get done by the new year, if we can at least get the first and second reading on the table. I don't think it'll take that long, but I respect either decision. I'm good with either plowing through some of the first and seconds or adjourning.
City Manager Feltham, is there any items remaining on the agenda that must be dealt with today?
Let me turn things over to the managing directors for their input.
Managing Director Pancoast?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do appreciate Councillor McGrogan's suggestion of getting through first and second reading to allow, to minimize the risk of achieving unanimous consent for a third reading at that next meeting. In the meantime, we will certainly commit to revisit what the implications are for a potential delay beyond year end for these bylaws, but I do appreciate the practicality of that approach.
Okay, so having heard the debate, we will vote on the motion. Oh, Councillor Robbins?
Just wanted to make a friendly amendment to the motion that we adjourn the meeting at 10:20.
Do you consider that friendly, Councillor Sharps?
I do, because it's an effort to get through these first and second readings, but if they're not done by 10:20, do I need to make another motion, is my question? Or are we good if we do this?
If we approve the motion to adjourn at 10:20, we will adjourn at 10:20.
I accept that friendly amendment.
Okay, we will vote. And that's, passes. Okay, so moving on then to item 10.3.4.
Thank you. I'd like to move that council give first reading to bylaw 4729, a bylaw to amend the escort service bylaw.
Second.
We will vote. That's unanimous.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4729.
Second.
Seeing no speakers, we will vote. That's unanimous.
So sorry, just one question on procedure. Am I asking to make the motion, or I'm just going to bypass it?
I think we are not giving unanimous consent.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Then I will move on to, I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4730, a bylaw to amend the licensing bylaw.
Second.
We will vote. That's unanimous.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4730.
Second.
We will vote. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.3.6.
I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4731, a bylaw to amend the safety codes bylaw.
Second.
We will vote. That's unanimous.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4731.
Second.
We will vote. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.3.7.
I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4732, a bylaw to amend the vehicle for hire bylaw.
Second.
We will vote. That's unanimous.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4732.
Second.
Seeing no speakers, we will vote. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.3.8.
Whereas Section 11.6 of Bylaw Number 4168, the City of Medicine Hat Land Use Bylaw, provides that council may from time to time establish by resolution such fees as are required for the purpose of this bylaw, and whereas council considers it advisable to amend the fees established pursuant to Bylaw Number 4168 and fees established for various other land use planning and encroachment matters, now therefore the Municipal Corporation of the City of Medicine Hat in council assembled resolves as follows. The fees set out in Schedule A to this resolution are hereby established. This resolution takes effect on January 1st, 2023.
Second.
This one's a little different. Any speakers? Seeing none, we will vote on the motion. That's unanimous.
Whereas Section 15 of Bylaw Number 3008, the Subdivision and Development Authorities Bylaw, provides that council may by resolution establish fees to be charged with respect to subdivisions in the city, and whereas council considers it advisable to amend the existing fees, now therefore the Municipal Corporation of the City of Medicine Hat in council assembled resolves as follows. The fees set out in Schedule A to this resolution are hereby established. This resolution takes effect on January 1st, 2023.
Second.
Councillor Hirsch?
So I just want to make sure we're procedurally okay. Did we realize that we just passed, there was no 3 readings to this previous bylaw number 4168? Am I wrong to say that this has now been passed?
You are correct. The bylaw must provide council authority to set fees by resolution rather than bylaw.
So because of this is a resolution, we just actually had a conversation that we were going to postpone a fees and charge conversation. So we're either out of order on this motion or out of order on the other motion, which we just said we're moving forward into the next meeting. And the same with this one, and by the way, 10.3.9.
Well, there isn't much we can do about the previous resolution, but if you'd like to make a motion to postpone this item, you certainly can.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on the motion to postpone this item. That passes. Are there, so presumably you included item 10.4 and 10.4.1 and 10.4.2, which are not bylaw. No, 10.4.3. Nope. Oh, that's a local improvement bylaw.
Yeah.
So we need to approve 11.1 and 11.2. It's the schedule for 2023. So we will move to 11.2 in the interest of time.
Oh, am I moving that one?
Could we not adopt the minutes of the Energy and Infrastructure Committee?
I'll make a motion that council adopt the 2023 council meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
All right, we will vote on that motion. And that's unanimous. Item 11.2.
I move that council give first reading to Bylaw 4733, a bylaw to revise Bylaw 4727, which amends the electric utility bylaw.
Second.
So this bylaw is to correct a few errors that were in the amending bylaw that we passed at our previous meeting. So we'll vote on first reading. That is unanimous.
I move that council give second reading to Bylaw 4733.
Second.
Seeing no speakers, we will vote. That's unanimous on account of this being a revising bylaw to just correct some errors. Can you make the amendment to do all three?
I move that council unanimously consent to having third reading of Bylaw 4733 at this meeting.
I'll second.
Councillor Sharps?
Yeah, can we just go over what those errors were out loud, please?
Managing Director Maines?
Your worship, I'll redirect that to Managing Director Pancoast.
I could attempt to summarize them, but if City Solicitor is on the line, he may be the best. And if not, I will do my best to summarize those.
Yes, I can. Good evening. And they are explained in the CAO certification letter that's included with the bylaw. There was a reference to the municipal consent and access fee in Bylaw 4727. It was amended, or the electric utility bylaw was amended to amend Schedule A and B. Should have only been amended to amend Schedule A. So that's been corrected. And then in another section, there was a date missing. And then in another section, there was a 0 missing in a number. So fairly straightforward amendments.
Councillor Van Dyke?
Oh, yes, thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that it is page 154 of the agenda as well, if they wanted to see the written documentation.
Thank you. We will now vote on unanimous consent to give third reading to this revising bylaw. And that's unanimous.
I move that council give third and final reading to Bylaw 4733, a bylaw to revise Bylaw 4727, which amends the electric utility bylaw.
Second.
Any speakers? Seeing none, we'll vote. That's unanimous.
Motion to adjourn?
So we don't need one. This meeting is adjourned with all remaining items on the agenda postponed until our next regular council meeting.